Ladies and gentlemen, good evening from Denmark, Copenhagen, and welcome to another edition of The Toxic Happy Hour, where we are talking scams that delay the adoption of global money. Today, we are very happy, Pubby, to be joined by Francis from Canada, well, originally from Canada at least, and we've been fans of Francis for and probably trying to get him on since our show started, but finally we met him in Miami in June at the Bitcoin 2021 conference, and got a chance to convince him in person to join us. So we're happy to have you on, Francis. Pubby, good to see you again. Guys, I want to know what you're drinking. I'm having some Tuber Classic here from Denmark, and what's up?
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm so stoked to be here. Pubby, we had such a blast in Miami. It was so great to meet you. Man, this is going to be a lot of fun. I am drinking a La Cofrada Brewing Wild Breweries an artisanal beer from Costa Rica. Yeah. And I'm putting it in a koozie from Austin, from the Salt Lake Barbecue. So that kind of tells you a little bit where my head's at right now. Pretty big fan of the jungle here, surfing around and having a good time, and also thinking about places where there is more remnant and more freedom, like Texas. I tremendously enjoy my time there. I did enjoy Miami. It's not my vibe. Texas is definitely more my vibe. So happy to be here with you guys. Toxicity is getting, we're living in everyone's head. The toxic Bitcoin maximalists are the spearhead of the Bitcoin narrative. Advanced memetic warfare that's triggering everybody and promoting a very good cause, and we're very good at what we're doing. So our narrative is just dominating. So it's great to have a beer and I guess talk about it.
Yeah, I was surprised because usually we do these. Hey, cheers, man. We always say, hey, what are you drinking? And I know every time I see your Twitter, you're either there's your morning green smoothie drink or whatever, or then you're doing coffee distilled through a sock with butter in it. And to the person that says I fixed my closet, no, I didn't. It's still jacked up. Not until $1 million Bitcoin, and then I can raise my house down and build a new one. No, but Francis, really, thanks for coming on with us, man. Like I say, Miami, what a blast, and so much has changed. I don't even know where to begin, really. It's funny to say, listen, we had the founder of Bull Bitcoin, this beautiful exchange, Bitcoin-only exchange in Canada, coming live from the jungles in Central America.
I'm fully the whole team has been decentralized for since before the lockdown started. It was my idea to start the whole remote company journey, specifically in terms of being able to pursue the sovereign individual thesis myself, and it was just good timing that we went remote just before the lockdowns happened, and it's quite powerful. I have a lot of other friends that are running Bitcoin companies that visit me down here, or that I visit in other countries in Central America, South America. There's a huge remnant all over the world that are working on the Bitcoin cause. using nothing more than a laptop and an internet connection when you think about it. So it's kind of like this decentralized workforce building the Bitcoin infrastructure, and we're kind of immune to our own little jurisdictional spots. So it is not easy to do that. It is far easier to, hang out in an office and get shit done there. But yeah, I've been trying to make myself, I guess, anti-fragile, running the company just from the laptop. So that's pretty good life, and that's been specifically good for the last year, because for the last year, my main thesis has been that right now is the time to be thinking about where do I want to hunker down for the Great Reset. There's been such a tremendous amount of like great content coming out, like from Laser, from Mark Moss, from I was talking recently with Gigi, with Alex Zetsky, all these guys, about things coming to kind of like catharsis or like tipping points that maybe we've already passed, or maybe we're going to pass very soon. And then when hyper-Bitcoinization happens, a lot of people are going to be on the losing end of the wealth transfer. All sorts of shit might go down. We don't know. So kind of think about, where do I want to go? So moving around, and then that's great. But I do miss the office and seeing my colleagues, who my colleagues were, my colleagues are all Bitcoin toxic maximalists. So like a day at the office in Bull Bitcoin was just a bunch of memes and, talking shit about Bitcoin all day. So that was fun.
That's the tough part, I think, sometimes. When you go to like you described yourself, I believe, as a digital nomad, and a lot of people like to go that, but sometimes there is that human interaction that you can miss. So your entire company, is everyone just totally decentralized? Well, I wouldn't say decentralized, but just geographically distributed.
Yeah, it's pretty much geographically distributed, and from time to time we will want to meet up in person to do some, get some, shit done. I'm currently planning to, or trying, to go to Texas for that purpose. So a bunch of my team are Canadians, and they are, suspicious of the COVID vaccine narrative, and life there fucking sucks if you're not vaccinated. You can't do anything. Basically, you're so complete outcast. I'm sure you guys have heard the horrible situation in Canada. It's even worse in Quebec. Obviously, it's the worst spot of Canada, North America, to be right now. So where we can meet at different spots of the world, and get work done in person. That's kind of how you want to do it, because I would say that I don't know if I'm sidetracking, but running a company that's stable online is very kind of easy to do. You have like your income stream from online sales. That's great. But once you're building infrastructure and projects, and you're like expanding and you're creating new things, and you're kind of like in a quick iteration cycle, being in person and having that, speaking of Pubby and like having a beer, Bull Bitcoin, we used to go grab beers all the time. And then we would talk about all sorts of things around beers every afternoon, so that's when we started to be the most creative. Then the company runs smoothly. You go remotely, and then you go back to that in-person contact. I'm sure you've all felt also like when you're at a Bitcoin conference, for example, and then you're in person with all of those people, that the conversation is just exponential. Like the energy is just like off the charts. You're like the whole year, you're kind of saving up to that, and then you're just exploding, and then you get fried. After Miami, my brain was completely fried. It took like a week and a half to recover, just because of the level of energy. So that's kind of like the citadel theory, right? So it's cool to be remote, but I'm always putting myself in a situation where I'm surrounded by Bitcoiners, because it makes me think less insane. Like, oh, I'm actually like, these guys are pretty smart. We're like saying the same stuff, so I guess I must be not crazy. Or I gotta be,
Oh, go ahead, Aders.
Yeah, it's and now that you mentioned Miami, I actually felt like when I came out of that, I was very energized, because it was great to be confirmed in these views and this mission that we're on for humanity, that you're not alone, and finally meet in real person, these people that in the trenches with, in my opinion. And you said before that you don't know if we're like talking sideways or there's nothing goes sideways in THH. That's what we do at Toxic Happy Hour. We just we're having an informal chat here and having a drink and just talking with smart people and trying to have fun and entertain at the same time as we educate. So any topic is fair game. I just want to say one thing. You were talking about all the lockdown. So I've been in Denmark now for about a month, and there's no longer any restrictions. I don't know if it's been like this for a couple of weeks. Everything is back to pre-COVID. There's no demand for vaccine or test results. Restaurants are open inside, outside, nightclubs, bars. There's been a stadium concert with 40,000 people. I go to soccer games, full stadium. Everything is, it's going to be weird. I'm soon heading back to LA, and it's going to be weird to go back to this other way of living, because here everything's just free and great right now, to be honest.
I mean, that I was talking to Gigi the other day about some pockets of hope around the world, and I was looking for some confirmation on Denmark. So, I mean, that kind of goes counter to my projections and thesis of everything getting worse and worse, and the global reset agenda slowly creeping in through these cycles. I mean, I'm kind of on the pessimist camp. I'm happy that Denmark is able to provide, I guess, you know, a test subject, or I don't know, you know, the case study. Otherwise, so what about the rest of society in Denmark? Because from my perspective as an outsider, what I hear a lot from Denmark is super socialist, super high tax, like racial tension, all that kind of stuff. So debunk it for me. Like, let's say, would you go as far as saying, like, pitching people to come to Denmark? Like, would you say it's good enough now that you would pitch people to come there?
Well, the tax is very high. That I would say, and then the winter is long. I would say the true problems, or main problems. But otherwise, I think it's like things are back to normal. Is working as it should. And there was something you said, but it slipped my mind. But so I'm not moving back here myself. For those reasons, there's tax, and then there's the weather. But otherwise, I think actually, you know, what I've been thinking is this is actually a great citadel. Sure, maybe it's a country, but remember, it's a country the size of 1/3 of LA. It's only 6 million people. So you have, so you were asking, what's some of the film audio? I'll probably try. My internet is not good. We're talking about something you hear about. Oh yeah, so in terms of socialism and all of this, so what people and racism, I feel there's way less racist here than in the United States. And then of course I blend in here, but in US you're constantly reminded, and it's my thesis that you know, deep state that doesn't want to, you know, see the real problems in society, which is the theft from central banks enslaving everyone in the fiat currency system, keeps reminding about, you know, all this political correctness and Black Lives Matter and all like History Month and all of these things. And I saw him, and he was interviewed. He's like, "What do you think about like History Month?" And he said, "I we don't talk about, like, why do we have to keep throwing that topic up?" He just wanted, like, let's try and not always focus on what's different between us. So I feel there's less racism here. The last thing I want to answer, I know I spoke a lot, I usually do, is Denmark in terms of the economy is much more free than US. There's way more regulation there. There's way more protection of the few players that own the market in US. So here the deregulation. So the production value is very capitalistic in Denmark. But yes, then when it comes to tax and redistribution of wealth and free healthcare and free schooling and all that, then it becomes socialist. But it's two different things, and people don't think about that. And there's the production of value in society. It's here more than US.
Can I jump in for a second there, Anders? Yeah, because the irony isn't lost on me that Francis is in the middle of a fucking jungle and has crystal clear internet, and you're in Europe, and it sounds like you're at the bottom of a well, my friend.
I know,
but
you sound a little bit like Joe Biden, kind of.
No, I was going to expand on that because Francis, what you've seen, what you've seen over the last year and a half, obviously, is I equate it when I talk to my friends as these concentric circles, just moving in closer and closer, starting out from freedom, lesser freedom, and I know you're surprised because every few months is something new, something less you can do, and it's almost as if they make you wear a shoe that is 2 sizes too small, and then they say, okay, well, we'll give you a little bit bigger shoe. They take all your freedoms away. They give you back a little more, but who's to say? I mean, yes, I get you, the country you're in. I don't. You can share or not, but you can go to Denmark, and guess what? They get bullied into bringing in the same draconian laws. How do you decide where to hunker down? Because it seems like every month the laws are changing.
Yeah, I'm trying to get myself centered here. I think the you're making a good point, which is ultimately the move to make was to buy Bitcoin. That was the first move to make, and to make yourself not dependent on any nation state, like cutting your ties and your economic dependency and your financial dependency and your income dependency on the rails connected to the payment state. And ultimately, what I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this question, and there are very few places in the world that I see as having an actual chance of turning around, like Denmark. We'll see, we'll see what happens. But for example, anywhere in the EU for me is like an automatic no-go because I'm so convinced that the globalist takeover is like the EU is one of the major vectors and drivers of the Great Reset agenda at the at a policy and implementation level. But the thing is, ultimately, there's nowhere that's really safe. Like even in Central America, everywhere in Latin America, there's worse places than in Europe, in Latin America, in terms of lockdown and Great Reset. It's happening all over the world. There's like, maybe like some red states. I've been talking to a few people, and it's like, all right, some of the red states are kind of like holdouts. There's some holdouts like Caribbean islands or stuff like that, kind of all over the place, but none of them seem very sustainable. It seems that if you're kind of like setting up yourself for like multiple plan Bs consecutively, like, all right, so if this one fails, and then 3 years later, I can move to that one, or 4 years, 5 years later, I can move to that one. So the answer realistically is like, I've already went all in on Bitcoin, fucked on like a really long time ago. So I don't have to answer the question of like, all right, acquire Bitcoin at all costs, right? But for most people, the question right now is like, all right, I'm assuming a lot of our listeners are all in on Bitcoin. But if you're not, think about, why are you not all in on Bitcoin right now? Sorry, I'm trying to get centered. not like.
No, that's good.
So that's it. Like, make yourself ungovernable with Bitcoin, and then the other considerations of writing out the Great Reset are mostly centered now for me around less on paper taxation. So I'll give you a good. Think about the threat model of like, what's the threat to you right now? Like the actual government coming out after Bitcoiners is, we're already protected by Bitcoin for a lot of things that governments can do to you, and like malicious agents can do you. They can't seize your money. They can't know about your transactions. They can't blackmail you. They can't use that leverage against you. So think about what's the real threat to you. Is it really the government coming after you? Because as Bitcoiners, we should be able to look up tutorials online about how to be self-sovereign and censorship resistant, and store your wealth on a hardware device, and be able to take it away across the world, and use Bitcoin correctly. So and then I think about, okay, so what I actually realize is it's basically the community of people around you that are more the threat, right? So neighbors turning on you, businesses voluntarily imposing. It's the kind of like the cultural setting that you're in. And it's also the biggest threat to a Bitcoiner is usually himself, right? So taking care of your mental health, your physical health, taking care of your ability to just like not have to spend your Bitcoin, not lose your Bitcoin, not go crazy and like do something wild with your Bitcoin, and stay stable and not fuck up. Essentially, it's kind of like, if you're all in as a Bitcoiner, it's yours to lose. That's kind of like the way I see it. It's like it's yours to lose. So just start by being a full blown independent Bitcoiner. Then you don't have to worry about a bunch of things, and then worry about more immediate things like what kind of community you want to surround yourself with physically, and taking care of yourself as a person and writing out the Great Reset, because you've already done the right thing by going on a non-Bitcoin first. That's the premise.
So have you changed your time frame on this Great Reset? Because I retweeted one today and I called it, I forget who wrote it. I said, this is the tweet of the day. The best thing about the 2 week was it the 2 week flatten the curve is that it turns into 2 years. When does it end, man? Do you have a time frame on all this? So hunker down for how long, man? Because if you remember after 9/11, we had the Patriot Act, everything else. There's a whole generation that never knew what it was like to be on a. I remember as a kid, I'd be on planes flying, and people are smoking, everything else. Now you take off your shoes, your belts, everything, and they normalize it. They normalize the situation, and a couple of things you and I have talked about in the past with the mask. The mask is like the most dehumanizing element of it all. And you're raising a generation to think that's fucking normal to wear a mask, dude. That's the thing that pisses me off the most. So is there an end game here? Is there a time frame for you?
I mean, before the Great Reset started erupting, blooming in its full form over the last 2 years, I used to always say that the bubble was like 2 years away, since like 2010. I've been saying it's like 2 years away. It can't possibly go further and further and further. And then before the lockdown and COVID hysteria, I was kind of convinced that the climate issue was going to be the Great Reset angle. And then I could kind of see that, taking like 5 to 10 years to really take hold and take society down. What the Great Reset, the COVID hysteria Great Reset has change is the time frame of the collapse has significantly gone faster. That's for sure. So that has two, and then the intensity of it is going to be unprecedented, because if you think about it, that's the biggest black swan that I could never have thought of, this mass psychosis around this germ, and then now we're wearing masks, and now we're doing Purell, and now I never had that on my bingo card. I was definitely thinking it's going to be something more gradual and insidious, like climate change or some social justice warrior shit. So I've been having this discussion with a bunch of Bitcoiners right now. I mean, I guess, okay, so right now, realistically, they printed so much money. Inflation is starting to happen. Real estate, the pin could drop at any point. There's a bunch of pins around the world. There's a bunch of geopolitical pins. It's like, take your pick. Within the next 2 or 3 years, within the next year, who knows? Like something is going to trigger the everything bubble, right? The crash of the credit system. The crash of the. What's that?
You guys tried a new mic. I don't know if it's my connection or the mic, but Evergrande in China right now has $1 billion worth of debt. Could that be a pin?
I mean, that could. I mean, there's an accumulation of these things that are happening all over the world, because there's no central coordination, I think, of the pin that's going to happen. It does, by the way, it does feel like a controlled demolition in a sense, like the COVID lockdown and the QE
World
and everything.
Trade Center.
It does
like
kind of feel like
demolition.
Because in a way, you think about it, you are you're a politician, or you're a deep state insider, you're a bureaucrat. Everybody knows that the system is a complete Ponzi. It's about to collapse. It's going to collapse at some point. And then you're probably thinking, okay, so where do we place ourselves in this post-collapse world? Which is ironically the same thing that we as Bitcoin remnant are thinking about, like, how do we place ourselves in the post-Hyper-Bitcoinization world? But their angle is more like, okay, so our entire models are failing. We can the natural tendency now is to import like a China Western totalitarian model with some kind of Western social justice sauce and some kind of like AI tech fascism. I don't know who was saying this, but it's kind of like in the front end, it's like social justice, collectivism, and we're all in this together. And in the back end, it's kind of like techno-fascism, and then in the middle, it's kind of like, Marxist ideology that's feeding that, and then there's like the foundation of like long-term Marxist ideology. Then you have like this front end, which is collectivism and social justice warrior, and then in the back end, you have the corporal fascists thing. It's like a huge machine, you know. It's overwhelming, and then that's happening within that. So the controlled demolition is happening now. It's going to start to collapse completely within 2 or 3 years, and then the big question is, all right, what is going to be Bitcoin's effect on this, or what's going to be? I mean, we already know what the effect of Bitcoin is going to be. Is going to be on Bitcoin. The Bitcoin price is going to fucking shoot up. Everybody's going to rush in. They're going to sell all their assets. They're going to sell their houses. Because think about it. How are people going to afford Bitcoin when it's like 300K or I don't know, in like 2 years, when the whole massive collapse happens? They're going to sell their house. They're going to sell all their assets. They're going to be like, all right, I have like 13 grand in my bank account and I have assets worth $1 million. And I want, you know, like to buy a whole Bitcoin or like 2 Bitcoins or something in a couple of years or 3 years. I'm seeing bear alerts. Yeah. I mean, or, you know, Bitcoin is going to be $1 million in 2-3 years, possibly. It's going to be 10 million in like 8 to 10 years, certainly like 10, 20 equivalent or something like this. So what are people going to do? They're going to fucking sell their assets. And then, so we know that the price of Bitcoin is going to shoot up and we're all going to be rich and we're all going to be able to afford all sorts of great reset exit plans. But what's going to happen to other people? I don't know. I feel like for a few years, what's going to happen is like we got all the wealth because we were early Bitcoiners. Now they don't have any assets to kind of like acquire Bitcoin. So now they have to work for Bitcoin. And then their prospect of earning Satoshis are like infinitesimal. And they might be super upset about that. And then they might want to fucking seize their Bitcoins. Like, why the fuck not? You know, like these guys were lucky. Like, why not seize their Bitcoins? So that's, I have a double S-curve hyper-Bitcoinization model where it's like, all right, now we're just on the cusp of hyper-Bitcoinization. I think we're like 2-3 years away to have like a real speculative mass. We're already kind of seeing some symptoms like nation states and large corpo using debt and all the fiat Ponzi to finance the massive acquisition of Bitcoins, riding the Ponzi wave for like 20 years and financing the acquisition of Bitcoins, which is kind of unfair, but I don't know, whatever. They're doing it. Everybody's kind of doing it right now. So in like 2 years, 2-3 years, you have hyper-Bitcoinization or something. And then like there's like a cap on how much more people can get into Bitcoin because no one's selling because there's nothing to sell for. So right now there's no more dumping for fiat. There's no more, people are just like spending it on goods and services. So it takes a while before the redistribution of Bitcoin happens in the second wave. And in the meanwhile, the plebs are going to be very upset at the very unequal society that it has created with a very few amount of people being disproportionately rich. So that's kind of like what I'm worried about. It's like, all right, I'm worried about within the next 2 years, but I'm still kind of mobile. But in like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, when shit hits the fan, like, oh my God, it's going to be. And then some people think, oh no, right away, Bitcoin's going to save the world. And then poof, the whole economy is going to switch to Bitcoin. And then everything's going to be golden dandy, Bitcoin standard. Everyone's happy. But it's like, okay, we're getting out of a severe fiat addiction. And that's like at least 50, 60 years, really bad, you know? So how long does it take for the whole economy to collapse and then Bitcoin to come in and like rebuild? Like, does it take 5 years? I don't know, probably more. I don't know.
You know what I'm
I think it will be. Go ahead.
Well, besides, no, to what you're saying is, my God, even before the pandemic started, obviously we have spending issues. We're now looking at what $30 trillion debt, $200 or $300 trillion in America, unfunded liabilities. Greg Foss, good friend of the show. You got, $300-400 trillion in this bond market. And I'm thinking of it like this fucking proverbial balloon that keeps expanding into a wall of nails. And the nails keep pushing in, but that bitch just won't break.
Yeah.
How is it not breaking yet with all this printing? I just don't get it.
So what I was thinking about this Evergrande and stock markets crashing today. We know that when assets start crumbling like they did when COVID hit last year, they realized in 2008 and 9 that the way out is printing money. That was QE. Then last year it became quantitative easing on steroids. And if Evergrande triggers a global collapse, it will only mean that the money printing is going to accelerate even further and actually accelerate hyper-Bitcoinization. I mean, if we get a huge problem now financially, it'll speed up the whole hyper-Bitcoinization, in my opinion.
So, Pubby, I mean, you raise a good point. Is how can they keep delaying the popping of the bubble, and it's because people are breathing air into the bubble. They're convincing people to breathe in their air into the bubble, like the plebs, the masses. They have went through a cycle of shaming people, guilting people into giving up half of their wealth, and they have this very strong narrative machine, and there's a huge alignment of incentives from bureaucrats, from the art sector, from the entertainment industry, from television, from the press, and then they are feeding into this whole narrative, which gets people to be like, okay, like, you've already taken so much from me, but here's just a little more. You know, you've taken everything from me, and like, I'm so broke and everything's shut down, but I'm gonna take the shot and I'm gonna wear the mask and I'm gonna do, you know, it's so they keep printing money, they keep doing all the measures because people allow them. Everybody knows that, like, people allow them because you can. There's no real protest. I mean, there's some protest, but realistically, like, no, like, there's the time theft. The time thieves are running all of our institutions. Like, all of our institutions are run by time thieves, by fiat fucking sludge, like, all of them, right? So there's no like, there's no escaping. There's no escaping them. You know what I mean? It's quite disheartening to see that.
Yeah, just to jump in real quick. Yeah, BTC pins, fuck you, motherfucker. Because, yeah, I'm trying to drink a beer, talk to Francis, all right, and text at the same time. Excuse me for putting a goddamn X in instead of a C for Bitcoin. Anyway, no, we had the best fucking chat in the space for only having 30 viewers or so. I don't know. Maybe
I think it was Jose Bam that was making fun there, but BTC pins,
Latin Bitcoins.
Windbull bits,
yeah,
whatever. Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, at least we got Bitcoin. So yeah. So the whole point of this thing is, all right, we got Bitcoin. We're well positioned. We're positioned ahead. And then the everything bubble is. I like the idea that you have the credit bubble, you have the fiat bubble, you have the fourth turning generational bubble. You have kind of like an empire cycle going on at the same. And I've been feeling over the last year and a half some kind of sense of everything converging in this moment in history. And I'm like, am I a fucking egomaniac or something? But a lot of people in Bitcoin that are super into Bitcoin, they're like, no, like, I'm feeling a kind of sense of destiny and some things happening, and there's multiple different things at play, and we're all kind of like converging as Bitcoiners, and Bitcoin's kind of like all of these things are converging for everything to fuck up and collapse society. And then Bitcoin's this, like, the timing of Bitcoin is just fucking perfect, and it's just the solution to all of these problems. So, and we're so early, we're so insanely early right now. So the question is kind of like, can you stay alive and sane and free longer than the markets stay irrational? That's kind of like,
so,
you know.
So one thing I was going to ask you about, because it's great when you can wake up and do your drink and do some surfing and you have time to think. But think about this one, man, because this is something that keeps me up at night sometimes. To me, it's not so much that I have Bitcoin. It's about when the fucking supply chain breaks down. It's the fact that I don't grow my own food. Okay, all the Bitcoin in the world, I don't care what you have. Guess what? When that supply chain breaks down, and we have seen how quickly it can break down just during this basic pandemic. Yeah, what are your thoughts on the supply chain and your recommendations for people?
For sure. Well, I mean, I got rid completely of my Amazon addiction. I don't order anything on Amazon. So in terms of food, I'm a big believer in Joel from Untapped Growth's model, where you would like invest in a farmer, or you would invest in a producer of food, like a cattle ranch or something like that, and then they would guarantee you a supply of meat in over the next coming years. So establishing kind of like investor-consumer relationships with producers, sovereign producers of food. someone had a fucking awesome tweet the other day, which was you eat ancestrally for health reasons and you eat locally for sovereignty reasons. I think it was Laser, where you know, like I tend to think of eating ancestrally as in, okay, I think about consciously eating food that my ancestors would have eaten, like milk, cheese, beef, you know, wine, all sorts of like French, you know, European foods and Quebec foods, like a lot of animal fat, all that kind of stuff. But here, for example, in Central America, and when I'm traveling, I definitely tend to like try to find suppliers of food. It's a huge thing. But I mean, the thing is, you can also own Bitcoin and not worry about that now. I do believe that even in the case, so when the supply chain breaks down, it's not like the internet's going to be shut off, and it's not like Bitcoin's going to not be usable. Like the telecom, like people are still going to be able to use Bitcoin. That's what the infrastructure we're building is for that to happen. So you can worry very seriously right now about homesteading and doing all that kind of stuff. But I would say do that if you feel like your stack of Bitcoins is like not high enough for you to afford that, because you can also stack Bitcoin and find people willing to sell you the food later on. Like there's always going to be surplus in people producing food, just not in the fiat pipeline, but in the Bitcoin. Like, all right, I want to acquire Bitcoin. I have food, like, and then, oh, I have Bitcoin and I use, you know, Telegram and all that kind of shit. So we'll be able to find or supply food as sovereign Bitcoiners. But if your stack is small and you're like, well, I'm just a small pleb and I don't think I can afford some like high-tech food delivery services in the post-apocalyptic world, then yeah, for sure, like think about homesteading and that kind of stuff. So it's a mix of both. But yeah, it's interesting because I think everybody's thinking about this. Like I'm thinking long-term. I was talking with John Vallis about like just supply of beef and like the cost we're willing to pay and the logistics of just getting an endless supply of beef, because I use beef every day, right? So if I don't have a fuck ton of beef coming in, I'm not going to be sane or healthy. So that's huge considerations, you know, when you're thinking about where you're living. What happens, you know, my parents had a house in southern Florida, like one of those gated communities. And I was telling them, if the supply chain breaks down, you guys are so fucked. There's nothing, everything's built on a swamp. Everything's brought in by trucks. Like there's miles and miles of highway with absolutely nothing. Like if the water, if the electricity, if something bad happens, you guys are so fucking fucked. So yeah, that's definitely something to think about. Definitely living in a city is a big no-no for me. Within the next year, there's absolutely no way I'm going to live in a city. Impossible.
I bet you're. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Francis, so what do you think? You were talking about, you know, thinking about your security and being able to secure your Bitcoin later when things go belly up, and Bitcoin will be money of the world, and some people will have a lot of money. So what do you do to think, or you know, what do you think in terms of what can you do to secure yourself and your money, your Bitcoin?
Well, I mean, I guess the first part of it is a mental fight with your own time preference. So setting yourself up where in a situation where you're constantly accumulating, you don't really have to make those decisions. And there's a great article by Bitstein, you know, the toughest battle for a Bitcoin holder is with himself. So when I first got into Bitcoin a long time ago, one of my first mentors told me, you create a mental vault in your mind with a portion of your Bitcoins. And that can be like 80% or 50% or 30% or something. And then you lock them as not belonging to you and as being unspendable. They're unspendable Bitcoins. They don't belong to you. You have like a mental time lock in your head where you're at a point where, you know, and maybe you even separate them into another wallet, and then you make that super private, and then you make that super inaccessible, and then you'll be a fucking hobo that's sucking cock on the streets for the heroin addiction. Sorry for the image, kid. Before you access those Bitcoins, you just physically can't. I mean, you can, but you physically have trained yourself. So that's one. And obviously the thing is like, that's for your children, you know, that's the generational fund in 20 years, either for yourself or for your children. So that's one. The second one is obviously just like be non-custodial. It all starts from you holding your own keys. You don't need to like go around with a node. I do because I'm I'm a geek, but like, and it's just for fun. But you just self custody first, because depending on which jurisdiction you're in or whatever happens in the Great Reset, like, oh, you think they're not gonna fucking seize your money? Like, oh, like look at what they've been doing. Like, of course they're gonna fucking seize your bitcoins. Of course they're gonna 6102 Bitcoin in some capacity. Like, if you think like what's stopping them from doing that? They're fucking force vaccinating children. I think they're not gonna stop you from. And then there's gonna be some Bitcoin conspiracy theorists overlay, and they're gonna be like, well, social credit, like all sorts of shit, In the social credit system, like being a Bitcoiner is like, all right, you lose points on all 4 categories of whatever scoring system they have automatically. So just be non-custodial. And then, I mean, in terms of, it depends on what you need to do with your Bitcoin. I mean, I'm kind of in a situation where, I run a Bitcoin company, so I need to have access to some different, you have a bunch of different wallets, right? You have different wallets for different purposes. That's one of the key things of being a Bitcoiner that you have to understand. We used to teach that a long time ago. You have your cold storage and you have your hot wallet. Plain and simple. The cold storage can remain in locations, not necessarily travel with you. You don't need to travel with your cold storage of your whole Bitcoin stash, because that's just something that you, and definitely not your ultra cold storage, that's your mental vault, that you don't travel with that. You don't use that for any reason. And it's meant to be difficult, and you have to think about, the main thing is how quick you access your Bitcoin, because nobody can force you, nobody can seize the Bitcoin. They can only kind of like work their way into getting you to give them the Bitcoin somehow, like arrest you or threaten you or blackmail you or kidnap you or whatever. So it's like, how long does it take to access that? Because if accessing my stash would take like 30 days, then a bunch of these options are like, okay, kind of like out of the question, So that's the way I see it, man. And then it's not easy to do that. You kind of like always have to figure out. You expose yourself to a lot of peer-to-peer trades, and you kind of always need to be on the lookout what kind of mechanism can I use to cash out my Bitcoin and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's perfectly possible. And I can vouch for multiple other people than myself to be almost fully on Bitcoin, use prepaid cards, use a bunch of shit, use vouchers. You can have credit cards without having a bank account. People don't realize that, but you can just totally have a bunch of credit cards, and then you can pay them off with Bitcoin services. There's a bunch of ways to do that. So that makes us completely resilient, and then we are free to focus on what Pubby talked about, which is the fucking meat. We need the fucking meat. We need to secure the meat source. We're financially independent and sovereign. We're fine. Okay. Now we have to think about, okay, meat source, food source, water source, shelter, community, security, leverage, and then for like the next 3-4 years. And then if you're very smart, you think about, all right, in 10 years, I'm going to be fucking rich. So how am I going to leverage those Bitcoins in a very effective way? So you set yourself up. Like, if you're going to win the lottery in 10 years, just imagine that all your wildest dreams come true. All you have to do is buy fucking Bitcoin right now.
What's interesting is you may not realize this. Your parents aren't in a bad position, because I'm in Florida as well. All right. But listen, we have a pretty big cattle industry. But of course, the way governments fuck things up is they make sure you have to bring in the cattle from another, or the steak and the beef from another state. Someone's making money on the transportation costs. I have this vision of the future of like meat trucks going down the road, like Road Warrior style. Like just the truckers are being protected by a convoy of other vehicles with guns.
A fucking Hell's Angels just escort.
Escorting this shit.
Totally.
That's our dystopian future. That
they're not gonna accept $1 as payment for the fucking
man.
For the fucking emergency airdrop of like, all right, you guys are a bunch of 12 dudes on your holdout citadel. You need an airdrop of like 750 pounds of ground beef. Like, big operation going on. They're not gonna accept $1, that's for sure.
Hey, the future's in drones, I think.
For sure.
The future's in drones, man. Drop off that beef.
All right. You know what the future I think would be? Some fucking swarms of drones that are just powered by Bitcoiners, and then fuck your F-15s, man. Just
that maybe is where the security is.
I'm not afraid of the MIT shit. Like, I'm not afraid of the automated drones. It's it's like the equivalent of the firearm for like the Middle Ages. You know, we're just like, all right, now, you know, fuck you. You know, we can kill, you know, a bunch of people if they try to go on a compound, you know, with little swarm killer bees or shit like that. Then it's like a localized version of the atomic bomb. Like, if you fuck with someone, you're fucked. You know, it's an equalizer.
You remind me of Terminator and Skynet, and you see all these, you know, government bots in the air trying to find the Bitcoiners in the citadels, trying to live peacefully.
And you know what? Maybe the bots are gonna become self-aware, and then they're gonna be mercenaries that accept Bitcoin payments because they can then, you know, get refuelments of energy, and then they adopt Bitcoin spontaneously because it's the perfect money. So the AI is just like, oh yeah, okay, let's just use the Bitcoin because the humans have already done all the proof of work with all those like very manual labor things. The humans can do the proof of work, and then we can just have like a contract on our lives where we're constantly streaming sats to the AI bots, and as soon as we die, then we stop the streaming of the stats, and then, you know.
So you pay for security really to AI bots. This is totally feasible. That's
this
actually
is the Snow Crash universe. Have you read Snow Crash? Snow Crash.
I'm not good at reading books. It's unfortunately I'm better at podcasts.
Sci-fi.
Right.
It's a sci-fi book. I'm sure a bunch of people. I see Dr. Adventure in the comments. I think I saw. I know he read Snow Crash. But the Snow Crash universe, it's by a guy called Neil Stephenson, which is high on the list of. He was definitely an influencer of Satoshi. I'm convinced, beyond the shadow of the doubt, that Satoshi must have been a Neil Stephenson fan. And he described this anarcho-capitalist future with like ultra corporate security, decentralized mafia, automatic weapons, security systems, and different like private clubs and tribes all over the world that act as your embassy safe havens. Citadels are definitely described in Snow Crash. I think the Citadel concept, that was the first, you know, talked about by a Bitcoin memer or a Bitcoin guy on Reddit through the Time Traveler post. For those who haven't read the Time Traveler post in Bitcoin, it's where the Citadel meme comes from. Some guy posts about how he's a time traveler and says that in the future we're all, you know, gay, like holding our dicks in a citadel together, like living happily ever after. But
go ahead.
No. But the whole concept of that is like a decentralized network of private club communities linked together by like sovereign individuals. I don't think it's going to be like one massive citadel. I think it's going to be like a decentralized network of people that are sharing some kind of like trans-geographic or transnational jurisdiction where we have our own army, we have our own like hospitals and like private evac services. And because think about it, like we're going to be, you know, 5 years down the line, I call it the fallout in my Hyperbitcoinization thesis. The world's gone to shit. The supply chain is broken down. Everything fucking sucks. Like we're reverting back heavily. The pendulum is swinging back really heavily hard. It's starting to like on its rapid descent in the middle, and then, you know, a fucking airplane is so expensive. We're like, oh yeah, we're gonna have jets, but yeah, jets are fucking expensive, man. And it's a lot of things to think about. And then, you know, Katie, the Russian Katie Ananina, her company is working on all sorts of kind of like elite services for Bitcoiners. She's already on top of this thing. She's a friend of mine. I've met her a few times, and then we talked about this a bunch. Like she's recruiting people. You know, there's all these, and then what that becomes is like, okay, so let's share the jet, let's share the private evac services, let's share the private security services, and, you know, let's share, so, you know, like, I don't know, a bunch of infrastructure that we need, and then have that as a kind of network. That's kind of like what I see. The Knights Templars would be a good example. Right. I love the Knights Templars. The Hells Angels is a great example.
Oh, and we've got Pubby back. So
Pubby's back.
The guy dissing my terrible internet in Denmark, and he's right. Got thrown up himself. But Francis, I just want to say that I'm actually I'm really optimistic about what the future is going to look like after we've gone through this whole reset thing.
Yeah.
And I'm even hopeful that, not too many people will die from whatever that clash will be, because all of this central evilness is going to be defunded when nobody wants their cockbox anymore, and Bitcoin, so quickly in hyper-Bitcoinization becomes the money. That's it. Power switches over to people with good values and who want to do good for humanity.
I'm optimistic for like a kind of layer of society, which I speak about it all the time, like the remnant or the remnant plus, right? So where after the initial distribution of wealth, where there's going to be a point where the Bitcoin standard will kick in. It will, like, the effects of the Bitcoin standard will kick in and things will get better. And a cool thing is also that the monetary reset coincides with a culture reset, a values reset,
Fourth turning. That's
fourth turning,
whole,
right?
Yeah.
So you have all of these things that are kind of like in that part where now it's gonna, and Bitcoin catalyzes all of that. Obviously, makes the, because if Bitcoin did not exist and we were in that cycle, because those cycles are not caused by Bitcoin. I believe. I don't believe that the existence of I don't believe that Bitcoin has done the speculative attack, in the sense that the reason why civilization is rapidly decelerating, it's not because Bitcoin offers an alternative so far, because so few people have adopted it. Now with the nation states, it's going to start to like, that adoption is going to start to make it, a bigger dent. So it's really like the downfall of everything else. Imagine if there was no Bitcoin, it would take a long time to recover. Think of the Asimov book, The Foundation, right? I'm not the hugest fan of that book because it's kind of collectivist in a way, but in a way, for those who haven't read the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov, the whole concept is civilization is going to shit, so they kind of seed a little bastion of knowledge and science, so that once the dark ages of the next millennia have ended, they will reveal those secrets selectively as the plebs, go through that cycle, so that knowledge is not lost forever. So normally you would expect a really long cycle of like total shit, but Bitcoin's here. We've been working on it.
Hey,
it's kind of
you brought up the books, man. We're gonna get into some fucking books then, because that reminds me of Fahrenheit 451, Ray Bradbury.
What's that? Repeat that. Oh,
yes.
Fahrenheit.
Yes,
Yeah.
Fahrenheit. Okay,
Yeah.
because
Yes.
walking through the woods and everyone memorizes a classic, of course.
Right.
Some of those guys were so prescient in their ability to forward think, as I call it. But one thing I always love, man, you always bring up Ayn Rand. I'm a big Ayn Rand fan, Fountainhead, big fan of Atlas Shrugged.
Huge.
And one of the things what you see now is the two of her main themes. On the one side, the creators versus the destroyers, people that create and people that destroy. Okay. And the other side is the bureaucracy is everything must be fair. And in trying to make everything fair, they just crash the entire world. What are your thoughts, man?
No, absolutely. I remember that the author of the article Isaiah's Job, Albert J. Nock, was an influence on Ayn Rand. So she presumably read that article and was kind of influenced by it. The idea that indeed, at best, a huge chunk of the masses are at best just a neutral. I was actually talking about this with Zvetsky the other day. Like it's at best like a client relationship. Those people, you can offer them services and you can treat them with respect, but they're not going to be of any use to society or to you at all. The progress is going to always come from some kind of, 1, 2, 3% of society that's highly risk-taking, entrepreneurial, forward-thinking, revolutionaries, and these drive the main. At least they drive the main cycles of revolution and change, like the founding fathers. It's like 30 300 badass dudes, you know, basically kind of carried the whole thing on their backs. You think about the scientific enlightenment, you know, you have these photos of scientists, like 30 great minds, and like, all right, so these 30 guys just kind of changed the world, you know, at one point. And there's another great book, I can't remember, where these kind of like coalescence of geniuses that are at the same place at the same time, like the Medici, Da Vinci, like that was one, and then, you know, the founding fathers, that was one, and then, you know, some kind of European scientific and physics enlightenment, Einstein, all these guys, Bohr, that was one. So you have like these pockets of remnant that just they have a shelling point around them that's getting them to converge around something, and ours is Bitcoin, right? So we as Bitcoiners are like the strong shelling point right now for anybody that has like a very deep, like, let's elevate my conscience and like go deep into something like revolutionary brain. So talking about like that top percent of society that are movers and shakers within Bitcoin, you will have a insanely high proportion of people that are building Bitcoin that are in like kind of like that category, right? So you'll have like the most amazing individuals that are working on, or that are Bitcoiners, or that are super red pilled and kind of like fighting some kind of freedom fight right now, or developing their own exits. So and the idea of that is like, once the system collapses, that's why you have to cater to those people, and you want to make sure those people have Bitcoin. You want to make sure that those people are Bitcoiners. So like my strategy went from mass adoption. That was when I was kind of a new Bitcoiner for like the first 3 years, where it was like mass adoption, all that. And then I gradually shifted towards like selective narrowcasting is the term I like. Instead of broadcasting, narrowcasting the message, spending a disproportionate amount of time on some people that I'm like, you're a good asset for Bitcoin and you deserve Bitcoin. So I'm going to try to orange pill you specifically. Because once the whole shit collapses, then not only are we all well positioned, but a lot of us know each other. A lot of us are actually friends through this whole twist of fate with Bitcoin Twitter and all the podcasting and all the articles and all the content, which is like what made the whole thing alive. We're actually friends, you know, and I'm sure like if I'm in the same area and my fucking pickup is fucked up, like I can call one of you bros and you're going to fucking pick me up, you know? So there's like this whole other network of people that are like united by this common standard. Gigi said something fucking mind-blowing, and I'll stop my rant on that because I'm thirsty. Gigi said something mind-blowing, and we were talking about why is Bitcoin, why is there so much synchronicity in Bitcoin? Like a lot of synchronicity being the fact that a lot of people have the same thoughts at the same time, and we instinctively kind of like recognize each other. We become instant friends right away. Like you know someone and like immediately your best friend, and then those relationships last for a long time, all that kind of stuff. And then you're kind of like lucky and shit happens regarding Bitcoin that's positive for you all the time. And then he said, well, it's normal. Bitcoin synchronizes. That's what Bitcoin does. Bitcoin is a synchronization machine. So it's no surprise that with the blocks, obviously in the consensus and all that, it's no surprise that the users feel this once they become, right. Yeah. And I was like, obviously, right?
Francis, listen, if your car ever breaks down, for the right amount of Satoshis, I will come pick you up, man. I'm a Bitcoiner.
Fucking A, man. That's great. That sounds perfectly fair.
No.
I'll probably do it free, but I know Pubby would too. He's just joking.
Yes.
Hey, Gigi, I'll tell you, he's another one. And this is how cool he is, man. When you spend 3-4 years meeting people, like you say, man, who are true friends? In real world, people you meet on Twitter, people you meet on Bitcoin Twitter. Some of my best friends are on Bitcoin Twitter. And so Miami, I meet Anders at the hotel, made the mistake of putting that shit out there. Within 15 minutes, I get a tap on the shoulder. Yo, what's going on? Good to see you, Pubby. And I said, well, nice to meet you too. And he goes, it's me, Gigi. That motherfucker. So he's been on our show. Of course, obviously, he's always got the invisible shit on.
Right.
But that's the kind of guy, Gigi is. But man, another, like you say, he is one of the best ambassadors of Bitcoin. He embodies the entire ethos of Bitcoin, doesn't he?
He's amazing.
Yeah, no, we're friends. You're gonna hear. We're gonna release an awesome. We just did a podcast yesterday morning, actually. So we're gonna release that on Alex Zvetsky. And just to your point, like all of my best friends are Bitcoiners because through a process of attrition over the years, and then when the lockdown, a little bit before the lockdown, but at some point in my Bitcoin journey, and also when the shit hit the fan, I kind of realized that my normie friends, we were just retaining our connections because we went to school together and like we party together. There was not really anything connecting us. And like my best friends in real life are definitely from Bitcoin Twitter. I would say like out of my 3-4 best friends, and we hang out in real life all the time. It's not just we met on Bitcoin Twitter, but I meet a lot of Bitcoiners all the time in real life. I'll spend a few months here and there. They'll come down here. We'll go do shit together. We'll spend a week at each other's places. A lot of us have been meeting at conferences for years also. So there's definitely that shift. And I mean, I that shift has happened in every like toxic Bitcoin maxi, like for sure. Like, because at some point you're just like, yo, what the fuck is the point? I don't even drink anymore with non-Bitcoiners. I only drink with Bitcoiners. Yeah. Like, I mean, I don't like drinking with normies because what's the fucking point? Like, I'm gonna listen to the bullshit like for 2 hours.
I drink because it makes me stack more. To be honest with you, I had one double stack, and this was about $5,000 Bitcoin, and it didn't go through, and I thought I fucked up my order, so I stacked again and realized the order was just slow and getting to me. So I double stacked on my beer. I got a $10,000 beer tab now. Nice.
I can confirm this because Toxic Happy Hour really started many years ago, where it was just me and Pubby talking on the phone, and we would talk usually when he was done at work and he was at the pub. And once he had a few beers, he would either make the mistake of buying more, or just simply just feeling bullish and buying more. So I think that more than paid the bar tab. But yeah, I love the whole story about, when you meet Bitcoiners in real life, it's just an amazing connection. And that's what I loved about Miami, where I met Pubby for the first time. Although we've been friends for years, it was that was amazing. And which reminds me, I haven't put it in the show notes yet, but if anybody want to go to Miami, April 6 to 9 next year, which is the Bitcoin conference of next year, we have a 10% discount code that is Toxic22. That's the code. Pubby and I are going to be there. I hope, Pubby, you can make it. And what about you, Francis? Will you be at this next conference, even though it may not be exactly your energy? Or
let me jump in real quick because I know where Francis is going to go here, man. Fuck, US comes out today that you got to have a full vaccination card.
So that's usually problematic. I mean, in terms of Bitcoin conferences, I really liked Austin. I really liked Miami. I thought Miami was going to be my last, and then Austin I FOMO'd and I went there because I had so many friends going there, and it was going to be awesome, and I want to be in Texas. But yeah, it's becoming really a pain in the ass to travel around, man. Bitcoin conferences. The thing with Bitcoin conferences, Anders, is like they give me energy, but they also take a fuck ton of energy. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean, but yeah. Explain. I mean, do you burn your resources from all this like passion of seeing other people? Like you just
absolutely, man. Think about first of all, like a lot of people, they want to come up to me because they've been following me for a little while, right? And they're like, it's their final chance, it's their first chance, or to hang out with me. So I get a lot of people that want to have great conversations, and I'm fucking stoked because I love having awesome conversations with Bitcoiners. I always have. So I usually lose my voice after like the second or third day, and then you kind of get into a mode where, all right, everywhere you go, everywhere you look, there's a fucking awesome Bitcoiner, and you're like, what the fuck, there's all sorts of dinner plans, there's all sorts of great crews to hang out with, and then you try to maximize your experience, so you're always on the go, you're always like, but so it invigorates, it nourishes my soul, but it definitely takes my energy in terms of the body. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get it. Puppy.
So, yeah, fuck, I'll jump in on this stuff, man.
You had a rough Miami, man.
Listen, man, you feed off the energy.
Right.
I can't imagine what the OG and everyone else goes through.
It's amazing, bro. Yo, by the way, it's like, it's crazy, but it's amazing. In Miami, I had a transcendental experience where I'm good friends with Gigi. We talked about Gigi's different because nobody really knows who he is, but he introduced himself. But Valis, Breedlove, a bunch of guys. I was like, we all said the same thing, which is everybody's, and that's because, and that's a great thing, because when you're doing content online, you hear that, you see the feedback, and then but when you see in person a bunch of people, like hundreds of people, they're like, oh, and then what's crazy is that I know who a lot of these people are as well, because I mean, I follow a lot of the plebs on Twitter, so I have the same experience as everyone else in a way, where I'm like, I met Shinobi for the first time in Miami. Mr. Huddle, I had met him like, I don't know, fucking many years ago. A bunch of people I met like 6 years ago. For me, it's kind of a high school reunion, because Miami is like my 50th conference or something,
Yeah,
so.
but that's your perspective, and this is what I love. So I'll tell you the perspective from the next generation. By next generation, it's every halving has that next generation. Okay.
Right.
So, for example, we have our quote unquote heroes. We have the people that kept us in the game from 17, 18, 19,000 down to 4,000, 3,500. The people that kept us in that game so long, you have a love and respect for them. And
right,
so
for sure.
And that's what you seek out. And moving forward, and it was cool, because like you say, it's cool that he's anonymous, of course, been on the show twice, but it was hilarious because just we have, as you can imagine, this shitty little show. I think we're up to 33 people watching. But what was fantastic was Gigi and I would be out one night, and then you have someone come in, Pablo from across the street, and I'm with Gigi, all right, and they're all looking at Pubby,
right,
and they don't even realize the brilliance that is fucking next to me.
Yeah.
I said, you may want to talk to this guy before you talk to me. And
but you gotta be careful at Bitcoin conferences talking to people, right? So you have to have an open, and that's, I guess, a part of the high level conversation that are happening, is because you don't really know who people are. They can be people like from Bitcoin Twitter, or other low profile Bitcoin geniuses that are, and then poof, man, you're in like a next level conversation that you're never gonna have again for the next year, right? So you're never gonna have that over the beer. I mean, you have the toxic happy hour, but in real life, the toxic happy hour is fuck ton more fun, right? And a lot more impactful. My favorite ones were Riga. Riga was.
Yeah,
Riga is a I don't know if has either of you been to the Riga Honey Badger conference, or?
Nah, I don't have enough corn.
And
man,
the women there will kill you. The women will kill you with their beauty.
Oof. Oh yeah.
Fucking Estonia, Jesus fucking Christ, yeah.
The level of partying, like Bitcoiners party hard, like all night. Like crazy karaoke until 5 a.m, that kind of shit. Bull Bitcoin, we did the Bull Bitcoin banquet. It was. I postulate maybe one of the most fucking awesome Bitcoin events of all time. We rented this medieval, like 13th century or 12th century Knight Templar stronghold that is now turned into a medieval restaurant, where there's like the flute players and all that shit, and like the big pints of ale. And we had a fucking gigantic pig just roasting, and just endless amounts of like pork and fucking sausages and all that shit. And it's like a medieval banquet. Is fucking nuts. There was 150 people. It was so awesome. Yeah, man, conferences are like my best memories. It's because this is my tribe. It's everything else in between is just kind of like soloing it a little bit, and then you're with the tribe, and then kind of soloing it in between.
It's becoming a global citadel, right? Like of Bitcoiners and that network of friends and like-minded people. Puppy, you were about to say something. So I want to give the word over to you, my friend.
Yeah, listen, fuck. Listen, we got to get Francis back into Miami. We got to get him back into 2022 Miami.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, as a Canadian, his easiest route is through Cuba.
Yeah.
On a raft. Get in Cuba, find a fucking raft, and then you can find your way to Miami, man. I don't know how
I'll figure it out.
There.
Well, the thing is, like, what happened with that announcement with the vaccinations was that, okay, so gradually, we all knew that was coming at some point, okay? Definitely that happened a bit faster, like a year faster than I thought. But all it has done is, that is kind of the tipping point where you're like, all right, I actually have to put one of those plans in motion. Like my plan involves going to the States. I like the States. I think there's a lot of places there where I see myself being attracted to the final stand kind of locations, like Texas. I think from a historical point of view, it's just like, all right, if the final stand is going to be in Texas or the US or the rest states, and the great reset battles are going to happen there, I mean, why not be around the action? There's a lot of momentum towards Austin, that's for sure, and towards Texas generally in the rest states. So
Alamo.
Yeah, exactly, man. I went to one of the museums in Texas, and I was like so fucking pumped. After going to the museum, the Texas History Museum, I was just like, I want to fucking go there. Like, these guys are fucking winners, So the vaccine thing is not gonna stop me. Like, I'm a fucking sovereign Bitcoin remnant. Like, this is exactly the whole point of the last 8 years of training. Is like, I'm gonna figure it out. It's gonna be just a fucking headache, and it's probably gonna, be long and cost money or be higher risk, than I would want. But I'm gonna figure it out. I'm not gonna go through Cuba though. I'll be fine. I'm sure I'll be fine. I'm exempt. I'm just naturally exempt from all that shit. I'm more thinking about the average person is fucked. That's why I have Bitcoin. That's the whole point of Bitcoin, is to execute your purchasing power to get yourself out of fucking the Great Reset and keep a lot, more for further, use.
I love it. I just want to touch or expand on the one thing you said, like you like US, and I get that, because despite the rule that we have right now, the way America originally was very much Bitcoin values, I feel. Like the original America before central banks and a corporate CIA, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I get that. There's and you still see, I think, a lot of that in the culture of Texas and maybe Florida. I'm not sure. So I get that.
America's a weird beast because. Sorry, Pubby,
can I jump in real quick? Yeah, let me jump in real quick, because this is something I wanted to ask you, and it dovetails into what Andrews is talking about. It's the nature of how Americans are shaped and formed, and how we move forward, and how your mind is shaped and formed at every generation. We're stuck at a generation that thinks this is normal. We forgot our past. We literally forgot our fucking past of being Bitcoiners. Okay? We went from Bitcoiners as a country to shitcoiners in a few hundred years, man.
You're right.
See?
You're right.
So
1913.
Yeah, go, man.
So America's funny because the Great Reset is a global phenomenon that probably does not originate from the US at its core. It's kind of anti-US values at its core. But the US is now the global enforcement arm of the Great Reset agenda. 3-letter agencies, the whole state machine, the Pentagon, the media, the culture, everything is like coming from the US, So if the US had said like, no, zero masks, zero pandemic, zero nothing, the rest of the world tends to follow kind of like the US as a big importer of culture and ways to do things. So it is the worst kind of place to be if you think about it, because they're the most aggressive government. I mean, fuck, obviously not China and fucking North Korea, but if you think about your options, the US is kind of a weird thing because that's where the NSA, FBI, and all these things are. In most countries, you're not really afraid. I'm not fucking in Central America. The feds can't fucking find you, man. They can't do shit. They can't build roads. The government's inefficient. There's a whole citadel theory around being in places where it doesn't matter if on paper your government's a communist shithole, if in practice you're left alone. Like, think about a lot of the communist dictatorships. There's one that I won't mention in Central America, right? But I think it's a place where you can easily navigate communist dictatorships with the right amount of corruption and political leverage and all that kind of stuff. Like, these are not necessarily places that on paper are really bad, but in practice are quite good. In the US, so in the jungle here, I'm not afraid of the government of the country I'm in following me, tracking me, and like having spy cams and shit, and like knowing where I am and like intercepting me. In the US, they definitely have the capacity to do that. Like so it's a, and then you're putting yourself kind of like in the lair of the beast, you know, that's where, but it's also where there is the highest level of social resistance. So you have the highest level of government oppression, other than not in terms of like being bad, but being like capacity to enforce government oppression. The US has just the highest amount of capacity. It's a very big and well-run government state machine. But at the same time, you have Texas, where it's like, where would I imagine myself being on a compound where thousands of citizens will join up with me and, like, if, you know, provide at least a scalable geographical area where this nonsense is in existence and there is a culture of resistance. And then because that creates kind of a high hanging fruit, the government does not want to expand energy out there. So that's what's weird about America. It has, at the same time, Texas or Arizona. I know fucking Arizona is great, and Florida and all sorts of places where you have all sorts of freedoms, but then you're also under. So I wouldn't want to become like an American citizen because fuck that. Because then you're. But I wouldn't mind living in the U.S. and like working there. You know what I mean?
Let me tell you the problem with with Florida, for example, and many people don't know this that have never been here. The last governor race was between Ron DeSantis, everyone knows that name, and the other one was Andrew Gilmore. And here's the problem with, do you know how close that race was? 0.05% of the
No
votes.
way, really? In Florida?
0.05%.
That's too close for comfort,
6 months later, the police are called to his hotel room where he's passed out with a male prostitute and cocaine. Okay, this is how close we were to being under a Democratic,
a degenerate motherfucker
that was in charge. I have friends that have small businesses here. They would have been run out of business if he was in charge. He would have gone the way of Michigan and Whitmer. He would have gone the way with Texas, with Newsom in California. That's how close we were, 0.05%. So, as much as I love Florida, thank God I was here for these 4 years. I don't know what the fucking future is, man.
Man, the trends are bad. So, I mean, I don't expect like the voting like public to be like, oh, let's all. No, I mean, you look at the generations that are coming in; they're even worse. They like the Gen Z are so cynical, so nihilistic, so meaningless lives. They don't have any prospect of employment. They did not benefit at all from the fiat Ponzi. So they're entering the game at the exploding time. They're scared to death of fucking climate change. They don't know what the fuck their identity is. So then they're completely morally bankrupt.
Confusion.
Confused completely. I mean, I have a cousin that is. I cannot overstate how confused she is about who she is, what she belongs to. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we have a family heritage. Like, we've been in Quebec for 350 years. Like, we got grandpa, we got all that shit. Like, we got all these things. Like, we're lineage, we're fucking culture. Like, what do you mean? And then she shaved the side of her head. I was like, no, she had some beautiful long hair. I can't believe it. And then these are coming in into hordes, and then they're going to identify. It's the collectivist. This is like the last huge. And then it's kind of splitting off. So there's another Gen Z, like the big split is happening at the Gen Z right now, right? So like that's where the generation is really splitting off. It's people that are between, because now the red pilling has been turned. So the thing that has happened is that the blue pilling was sexy and popular for the last 20 years. Like Hollywood led blue pilling of the masses of children and all that. And then now with the internet generation, you have a new generation of cooler people that are red pilling, especially with the lockdowns. Like if you look at who's like fucking cool, it's always like the lockdowners, social justice warriors are always fucking lame as fuck, and like they're losers. You know, everybody tells they're losers. There's no, and then all of your former pop stars are also super lame, pro-state, and like the kids see that, I think. And then you have all the alternative media like the Zoobies or all of these other guys that are anti-establishment, like Joe Rogan and all these other guys that are super popular. So that's kind of like it's splitting. But the Gen Z generation, oof, when they start to vote, like, oh boy, we're so fucked. They're gonna just be like, oh well, we have nothing. Everybody, we are on the hook for all of the previous generations. We're so fucked, so broke. Like, we're gonna just take the 5% wealth and fucking seize it. Like, what else is there to do? Like, because they're the bankrupt generation. Like, okay, so we have to be bankrupt? Like, no, sir. I'm just gonna take your fucking bitcoins. Let's just take their bitcoins. Hey guys, let's just fucking take their. You know why is that not gonna happen? They're gonna vote for that. They're gonna happily fucking line us up. You know.
There's nothing left. There's nowhere else left to go.
No, Bitcoin is the only way out. Literally.
Yeah, there's a movie from the early 1980s in America. Yeah, what the fuck was it called? As I'm thinking back,
I feel something good coming.
An officer and a gentleman. You have the guy that's going to redeem himself. He's going to go.
Okay.
Well, he goes to naval aviation school, but he had nowhere else to go, and he was the worst of the worst. And at the end, man, he was being beaten up by the drill instructor pretty much. And he goes, why? The drill instructor is trying to get him to quit, saying, why don't you quit? I want you to quit. I want you to ring that bell, because at the time you rang a bell and admitted defeat. And he said, because I got nowhere else to go, man. Mm-hmm. I got nowhere else to go. And I love that thing stuck with me in life, because I got nowhere else to go, man.
Totally. And I totally felt that, like during the lockdown, where my original plan for 2020, it was my 7th year in Bitcoin. And then I was planning on taking it easy and doing kind of a sabbatical. So I had already booked a couple of months in Indonesia, and I was going to do some coding on the side and, you know, kind of take like the bull Bitcoin a little bit. You know, it's on automatic, like not take a little personal time for like 5 months, something like that. And then with the lockdown, I was like, I have nowhere to go. I had nowhere to go for 5 months, and I was so fucking motivated to work. It was unbelievable. Even I have a lot of friends that are like Zvetsky, for example. That's when we became friends. Alex Zvetsky and I started to call each other out of just fucking fuck them. Like, we're gonna become so rich. Fuck them. You know, like getting so fucking pumped. Like, all right, I have nowhere else. We have nowhere else to go. Okay, so there's no other escape. The Canadian elections are happening tonight. Okay, and then we got this perfect, great candidate, Maxime Bernier, great leader. I don't know if you guys know how fucking epic this guy is. He ran like a double marathon and broke records in a row or something. He's fucking super elite individual. He's the best representative we can get. He's gonna get 10 to 15% of the popular vote, which is great for a Libertarian Party. 0 politician elected, for sure, from his party. Maybe 1. The way that the elections are made, it's kind of like in the US with your delegate situations. It's all fucking rigged. Like, there's no way in hell that he has any power whatsoever. People need to understand democracy is a god that failed. It doesn't work. It will never, ever will you. And like, fucking spending your Bitcoin to lobby, I mean, okay, I kind of understand maybe in some select things, maybe you want to like try and, but honestly, it's just the whole political, it's like, you cannot fight the system from the inside. You cannot incrementally change the system. You can't orange pill enough politicians and steer it in the right direction and then redeem it from the institution. There's just no way. Bitcoin's the only exit. Like Tina had it like nailed in his fucking name. Like, there is no alternative. The only other alternatives are delay while you accumulate more Bitcoin, kind of, or join the enemy and like destroy the Bitcoiners. That's like the other alternative, you know, just join the sludge and then try to kill Bitcoin which obviously you can't. So there's no alternative.
There
but
is-
at least we have it. At least we have it, right? So
yeah,
that's
there
good.
there is no alternative. I'm laughing in a sense because there's some that try. I got back at the Bitcoin conference and I started running a Spaces sort of chat room, and fuck, for somebody that usually has like 30 viewers, like tonight. Oh shit, we're up to 44. But someone that has 30 viewers, I scroll down and there's a blue check. I
Oh,
said,
right.
well, holy fuck, I got a blue check. I looked down, and it was a member of Parliament from Canada, Ben Lobb.
Which one? Do you know which one?
Yeah, Ben Lobb. Because yes, of course I know which one. Because guess
Okay.
what? I reached out and I said, "Hey, listen, Ben, you seem interested in Bitcoin. Will you do a shitty toxic happy hour podcast with us?" He said, "Yeah, of course. I've never heard of you before, but I can assume you're not good." So I went forward and I reached out to Jeff Booth and Greg Foss, and that's what we did. It's on our show channel.
I didn't see it. Really?
No, yeah. So Ben.
Oh,
Lobb
not
came
yet.
on.
Okay.
But
No, we
he
did
was
did it after Miami. It's
after
done.
Miami. But what
Right,
was
okay.
cool was a Canadian politician was willing to come on, and
Mm-hmm.
we were trying to get them. Listen, after the El Salvador announcement, let's get a major. Well, I wouldn't say major country. According to the
It's a
G7.
G7, right? Yeah. So
Yeah,
It's a
but
G7,
Francis, we
right.
tried to create the narrative like
Yeah.
let's get Canada to be the first G7 country to adopt Bitcoin. And I know
Bitcoin,
Trudeau
yes.
would not go down that road, but you know,
But man, it's impossible. It's like Canada is like the anti-Bitcoin country. There's zero way. It's like Canada is ground zero for the Great Reset with Australia, and then
I think so. Yeah.
When I got into Bitcoin, really, I got into Bitcoin right away. I got into Bitcoin lobbying. That was my first Bitcoin job. I was in politics before. I was working for an Austrian economic think tank, public policy think tank. Yeah, and then I became friends with Bitcoiners through this connection of like the libertarian circles in Quebec and Montreal, and me being quite involved in writing as a researcher, doing kind of like, like Nick Carter type of jobs, or public policy stuff, and going on the media and explaining free market. Anyway, so I was involved in those circles, and then the early Bitcoin adopters were like, "Oh, we want to use your public policy skills to orange pill politicians, journalists, the media, they were like, okay, we need to have some kind of battle plan to orange pill people selectively using the narrative that we want about Bitcoin, like we need to determine how they talk about Bitcoin." So I was really, I became famous, quote, for, I had a TED Talk in 2014, and then I had Senate of Canada. I made a speech and then we started to engage with the politicians, telling them to buy Bitcoin, telling them to mine Bitcoin. And we had a long streak. And then even in 2017, I was trying to orange pill Hydro-Quebec, which is one of the biggest producers of electricity in the world, like bar none in the world, probably top 10 or something. And then I was trying to orange pill. I've been trying to orange pill politicians, and I'm doing a good job of orange pilling some people in some places, but that's why I left Canada in the first place. It's a corporate sludge, bureaucratic mediocrity, leveling down. Their interest in Bitcoin is like, haha, let's hear this guy talk about it. They're so unentrepreneurial. The idea of changing the system for anybody in Canada, and I think in Western civilization generally, in the bureaucratic corporate establishment, is like you need to be a revolutionary to implement Bitcoin. You don't need to be. It's revolutionary, and it's extraordinarily difficult at this point to like adopt Bitcoin. So these people are intellectually curious about Bitcoin because they're like, in the same way that they're curious about AI. In the same way they're curious about space flight. They're not seeing because the
You need to
acceptance the acceptance of Bitcoin's truth is to understand that you are a fucking parasite, right?
Yeah,
because
and that's
you know what I mean.
that's usually hard. Yeah, totally. That's usually hard for people. I think people don't really see the value of Bitcoin until they see that there is a problem, and that's the beautiful thing about third world countries probably adopting Bitcoin like we're seeing it in El Salvador a lot sooner, because they see the problem, so they adopt and they'll benefit from this, and they'll it can turn the tables on who's which countries are powerful in this world. Thanks God.
Yeah, well, that's definitely like a huge black swan move. I think that's when I'm a fan of I was growing up as a fan of the TV show Survivor. I don't know if there's any Survivor fans watching this. I was a huge fan of that show for the game theory, political aspects, psychological aspects of tribes of people selecting who's the weakest link and kicking them out. Imagine yourself as you're in a tribe, right? And there's a ritualistic sacrifice, and there's like 3-4 guys at the top. If you know you're at the bottom, you're incentivized to make bold moves, because a country like El Salvador is not making any plays. They don't have any leverage on anything. Unlike other countries like Costa Rica, like they really don't have that much, I guess, any strings, and they're definitely at the bottom of the totem pole, the global totem pole. So they absolutely have nothing to lose. But countries like Canada are like, they're at the top. They want to assert their dominance, but the sovereign individual thesis, that's how it happens, right? You have these smaller countries that are like, well, I have nothing to lose. The whole game is run by countries that fucking don't even know who the fuck we are. And the alternative for, El Salvador is like another 2 billion, right? They're going to lose, some income from international funds. That's a pretty fucking baller move. Although we'll see how well Bitcoin from the top works, because we've never seen this before, right? So Bitcoin from the top has never been seen before.
It's
kind of like
it's such
crazy.
a great point. It's such a great point, Francis, because we haven't seen it from the top before. Because the obvious choice is, yes, I'll do what you tell me to. Or rage against the machine. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Fuck you, I won't.
Until you pay me to say, go get the vax.
Well, I've actually seen it once from the top. I've seen it kind of once from the top, where instead of with the Backpage Bitcoin event, Backpage being a site where prostitutes list their sexual services, their ads for, I don't know, whatever, and erotic massage and all that kind of shit. And then that site got censored by PayPal and by Visa and by PaySafeCard. So Bitcoin was their only payment option. And they had over 100,000 users, I'm pretty sure, that overnight had to switch to Bitcoin payments. So from the top, like in the sense of imagine, but like the Nicaragua scale is crazy. Imagine like if McDonald's was to force Bitcoin payments on all his things worldwide, or within the company now, every McDonald's employee also. I mean, who knows? Like, are people is it gonna be? I mean, I'm sure it's gonna be beneficial for a lot of people, right? Because if I think about how adoption was made. In the early days of Bitcoin, people buying shit online illegally, sketchy shit happening. They were just at the right place, casinos, poker players. They were just at the right place at the right time. They weren't in it for the Bitcoin values at all. They weren't using their own nodes. They weren't running their own keys. They were using custodial setups and shit like that. But, they got spare change.
I'm laughing at. Yeah, poker players get lucky. Oh, you got lucky when you won at poker. No one's ever played poker before. When you say you got lucky.
Oh no, no, and I don't play poker because I'm not good at zero-sum games. I'm pretty bad. A lot of people want to play poker with me, but I'm not a huge fan. But yeah, so what were we talking about? I forgot.
Oh, we were talking about the poker tournament. Poker tournament we're going to start in Miami, 2022. Me, you, and Anders.
Oh no.
Poker tournament.
You play Puppy? Yeah, I'm no good. You play Puppy?
Well, now I play double better. What? Of course I play. Yeah.
Okay.
He puts on his poker hat.
Yeah.
No, I never played before. I'm not good at this game. What do you call it?
I'm too impulsive. I can't. I mean, I'm a very high time preference individual, always constantly trying to be low time preference. But in poker, I can't stand for hours and hours and try to make money. Like I get, sidetracked with too many thoughts. Bitcoin thoughts.
I'm a lazy motherfucker, so the low time preferencing always worked out for me. You know what it means?
That's great.
You buy Bitcoin, and what do? What do you do to get rich?
Yeah.
Well, but you don't sell.
Without Bitcoin, I would totally be poor. I'm sure I would have done so many mistakes. I talked with a lot with Madex. Madex is one of my really good friends, Spaceball. He's a younger generation, kind of like high flying, fast artists, type. And then he just keeps telling me like, Bitcoin saved my life. Bitcoin saved my life because his lifestyle was, rock and roll so hard. And then when he fell into the Bitcoin rabbit hole, he had this huge revelation, like huge personal transformation, where now he's such a hardcore toxic Bitcoin maximalist. It's unfathomable. And then he despises the fiat culture and spending and all of that. So for me, for example, like I'm like fully ADD, I'm really bad with money. I'm really bad at keeping budgets. I'm really bad at keeping track of shit. I'm kind of a more like creative mindset. Bitcoin is the ultimate savings vehicle. I mean, no savings app or no savings budget or no. Now it's my prime directive is just to have more coins over time, and that's so subconsciously ingrained in my mind now that I don't need to do a budget. My mind is always kind of automatically in the stacking sats, saving sats mindset, and always like, all right, increasing the. I love what people do. They just have a stack of Bitcoin and they're just going down over time. That's no bueno. You have to be going up.
Bueno.
That's no bueno. You have to like in 1 year, your stack of Bitcoin needs to be higher. It's harder. It's like exponentially harder over time. Like you're always working. That's how I explain to people. 2015 at the bottom of the Bitcoin price, I was working full time in Bitcoin at that time, and then Bitcoin's I don't know like $250 or something, right? And then I'm paid. I don't know what my salary was, but not much, like 25 $25. Takes me 10 hours to earn a Bitcoin, right? So I can work for 10 hours and earn a Bitcoin. Today, how many fucking hours am I have to work to earn? So the highest level of achievement that you can do is like continuously increase your stash of Bitcoin as it becomes even harder to increase Bitcoin because the price of Bitcoin is so high. So as an entrepreneur, like I'm not going to tell you like my financing and all that kind of shit is about Bitcoin, but obviously since it's a self-finance business, my opportunity cost is there's Bitcoins that I invested, and then there's Bitcoins that I didn't buy because I invested the fiat in the company. And then my metric is the return on those Bitcoins. I don't give a fuck about the fiat return. Who gives a fuck about that? I want to pay myself back all that went into bull Bitcoin, or that would have got into bull Bitcoin had it been Bitcoin, or had I bought Bitcoin instead of reinvesting in the company. And then I want to 100x my Bitcoin that I started to invest in bull Bitcoin 6 years ago. So that's like the right mindset to have. It's incredibly difficult. But that forces you to, like, it just literally forces you to save.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you use Bitcoin as the denominator here. That's the goal, not to gain fiat profits, but to really amass as much Bitcoin as possible. Pubby and Danish here thinking like 100x my Bitcoin. Yeah, sure, that would be great. We like dreaming here, hearing this.
Yeah. No, and it's so insanely difficult. It's so hard. So, but that's the thing about being an entrepreneur. It's like if you're a fiat entrepreneur, you're making gains in fiat. If you're a Bitcoin entrepreneur, you need to use the right unit of account to measure your success. Otherwise, who the fuck wants to measure? Imagine like this. Like, imagine you're an Atlas Shrugian. This is kind of like Atlas Shrugian, a Pubby. Like, you're trying to measure your success as an entrepreneur by the fucking cash you generate, by the money you make, and if you're measuring that in fiat, you're and then the government can make the same amount of money by clicking their fucking fingers. You're measuring your own worth to something some fucking gray suit can just generate out of thin air, and then you think you're real shit. Like, no, I mean, fiat is worthless. You can't measure your success in that at all. So maybe that's why we don't have entrepreneurship. It's like fiat is like a participation trophy. You know, there's no real trophy. Making Bitcoins that's how you measure your worth as an entrepreneur, like the profit you make in Bitcoin, right?
It's about how much Bitcoin or part of a Bitcoin you have. Francis, is it official? Like, can you say in which country you're in now and your experience there? Is it good or bad, or like is it good as a Bitcoiner?
Yes, I'm in Costa Rica right now. I'm gonna be at the El Salvador Bitcoin conference in November. There's 2 conferences going on there. I'm gonna be at the Austin Beefsteak. So I'm still digital nomading right now because I like to think of Costa Rica as being like a girlfriend, and Texas is kind of like wife material. Mexico is kind of like a very feisty wife. I don't know, maybe. So I'm still on the dating market for nation states to, trying to win me over. I wish they would try harder. Texans are trying the hardest out of all. Oh boy, everybody from Texas is like, come over to Texas, come over to Texas. A bunch of red state people are fully like, and I'm like, I love hearing this. I mean, this is exactly the sovereign individual thesis, and I get to witness it. People are legitimately saying like, bring your assets to our jurisdiction, like arbitraging. It's great. I mean, I don't think this was really a thing like 20 years ago as hard as it is now. It's definitely a move in the right direction. Costa Rica, it's kind of a fluke. The lockdown or, mask mandates are everywhere. There's no Vax Pass here. There's no test to get into the country, so that's great. There's no Vax Pass roadmap that I've been kind of putting my ear on the ground. So there's a huge expat community here that is providing a lot of the financing through taxation and consumption. Costa Rica's broke as fuck. They're super broke, super broke. Like, I think something insane, like 40% of their GDP is the interest on debt every year. An insane amount. They're on the brink of bankruptcy. They just
Costa
started.
Rica?
Yeah, they're really fucked. They're totally in financial shit. And so that gives me some kind of hope that the kind of like a El Salvadorian situation, although Costa Rica is really well known for just being the bitch of the US in a geopolitical sense, right? Costa Rica is definitely an asset on the US list that's a friendly asset, not a foreign scary asset like Nicaragua or something like this. So deep state is welcome here, I suppose, more than many other places in Latin America. So it's a cool place, as I say, to kind of like focus on health and lifestyle. It's expensive. What I'm looking for now is more that community level or sense of where can I see myself in like 10, 15, 20 years, like investor, because you don't want to make a high time preference decision just because right now, for example, the things about living in Central America and all these things is the lifestyle is quite appealing to someone that can afford to like live in the jungle and have a lot of fun. A lot of Bitcoiners I've seen a lot of Bitcoiners go to Colombia, to go to Mexico. These are all great places, but then these are pre-shit hit the fan places where kind of think of it like these are like the warrior meditation times where the big upcoming Great Reset battle is happening. We've coordinated, we've identified the threat, we've analyzed it, the different parts of the Great Reset. I think all of us, because of the Bitcoin Twitter connection, fully cognizant of the enemy and how it's approaching us. And now we know that it's like too soon to make a move. We're in a weird transition period where they're going on their final kind of strike, and we're growing Bitcoin, so we're kind of like not going on the defensive. So this is like the warrior meditation times where I see it like you accumulate, you gather energy, and then so that's why I like Central America, and that's why a lot of Bitcoiners, I've been telling them like if you're in a big city and you feel depressed, just about a lot of people are also like emotionally and psychologically drained from the Great Reset. Bitcoiners, I guess, are like revolutionary types. They want to change the world, and a lot of Bitcoiners think like they carry the world on their shoulders. So it's like highly depressing situation where you're working in your basement and you're telling yourself that you're working on Bitcoin. So you're doing your part, and you're not doing nothing. You're stacking sats and all of that, but it can get quite emotionally draining. So places like Costa Rica are quite good for people to take a break. So I would say it's a pretty good spot to hang out as a Bitcoiner, but it's not as long-term anti-fragile as US, for example, or Texas specifically, where when I go there in Texas, and I've been 3 times in the last year, I have a much bigger feeling of whatever happens, you'll be fine, we'll be fine, or a lot of us are ready, and we've got plans, and we've got whereas in Costa Rica and Central America, it's kind of like, by the grace of the government, we're not harassing you right now. But if we were to, nothing would stop us, and the population would cheer. Like El Salvador, for example. That's why I'm not interested in El Salvador at all, because I can totally see that the freedom is totally top-down, totally artificial, not grassroots, and therefore the tyranny can come quickly, whereas in Texas, the freedom is grassroots. Tyranny can only become top-down. There's not going to be a grassroots Texas movement to seize my assets because I'm polluting the earth with Bitcoin. That might be a top-down one, but I'm afraid of, long story short, very, very long story short, I'm afraid of grassroots movement against Bitcoiners, not top-down, right? And then in a place like El Salvador, the grassroots movements against Bitcoiners is being prevented by Bukele, right? Like that's the way kind of like I see it. Like he's preventing the masses from going after the Bitcoiners by doing this, but there's no grassroots freedom movement that led to him doing this politically to appease his voter base, right? So he's arguably going against his voter base's ideological leaning, which is like he's going in the kind of like a libertarian sound money angle, and that can be removed easily. That's what I'm saying. These things can be removed easily. So when you're planning for the next 5 to 10 years, it's like, is the place I'm in, or I'm looking at an accident of history that's being held artificially by some whatever, or is it a grassroots logical conclusion of larger forces, and this can be relied upon not to fail me in the future.
Right. I definitely feel that in Texas you have a lot of resourceful people that are true to the original American ideals of property ownership and freedom of speech and all these things that are aligned with Bitcoin values.
For sure. I mean, I met normies in Texas through private connections. And then they were like, I orange pilled the family, by the way, like super Catholic, hardcore Trumpers. The daughter there, it was like in her 30s, and she came up and she had a Texas is like American until Texas secedes, and then they were fully on the same mindset, and a lot of people were, and in a really fun way, and a lot of people were just naturally based. So it's super fun to talk to people that are normies, that are naturally just cool. Like, well, of course, this is the way that it works here. Of course, this is the way that these are just normal thoughts that we're having. And then I'm like, oh, fuck, this is like what I hear on Tucker, on snippets on Twitter sometimes, like my American hardcore friends. But I go there, and then I'm actually, staying at people's homes, and I had a very personal connection in Texas. And I was like, oh, like, I'm totally safe. If shit hits the fan, we're so safe. Like, these guys are badass motherfuckers. They're so crafty. Everybody's got a garage and big trucks, and like they've got equipment, and they're tinkering, and a lot of them are gold bugs, or they have food stores. The women are canning all sorts of shit all the time. They know how to quilt, all sorts of crazy stuff. And as a city kid and a person that grew up kind of like mobile, more like moving around, living in cities, I'm like, holy shit, these people are so resilient. There's a big resilient culture. And so, really funny story, the family I was staying at, they were telling me the grandparents did not know the Great Depression happened. The Great Depression had zero impact on their lives, right? And because they were 100% a family of 11 in between Louisiana and Texas, and in those years they were so self-sufficient in all things, and the communities were so well organized. The food must have been, honestly, from what they tell me, they were kind of eating like kings even, like I don't think there was a lot of famine in their family. They always speak about the grandparents, how there was always food on the table. And I'm like, yo, this is totally not in my city culture. People have maximum 3 days of food like in their closet, and they don't. Most people now, where does ketchup come from? Walmart. Like, obviously, like, where does the food come from? Well, the truck.
Yeah.
That's as far as it goes. My girlfriend's a teacher, and she was going through this exercise with inner city, whatever kind of lower class kids in Texas before a long time ago, and she was just telling me just how brainwashed and unsustainable, and how she was saying like the school is the phase 0 for the prison system, and there's absolutely nothing's been, and the kids are so completely disassociated with anything remotely close to natural human behavior in many of these environments. And they're being, every time they engage in natural behavior of a young child, like they're punished really severely, and every time they do something right and virtuous, they're never rewarded. So whole generation of kids is growing up, which is funny because I've been talking to a lot of Bitcoiners about having kids, and the whole hardcore Bitcoin toxic maxi is kind of like merging with, and also like family revival movement of like traditional big families, and pass on, obviously linked to the idea now of like passing on these generational wealth amounts. Like, what are we going to do? 30 Bitcoins in 50 years being worth like an insane wealth. So you might want to, you start to fantasize about passing on that legacy, because that's going to be so huge that you can even like imagine your descendants. I like to imagine my descendants like owning fleets of battle cruisers, like in 400 years, just the Francis, it's like a gigantic mothership, and they're like, oh, thank you for. And then there's a ritual every generation. The keys are passed through this arcane ritual that's developed by my descendants. Like that's the long-term thinking, and a lot of that is crystallizing around the idea that the kids are the kids are not all right. So if you have kids right now, then your kids are not only going to be fucking superior because of the whole Bitcoin mindset and like whole self-sovereignty mindset that their parents will have raised them in, but because everyone else is doing so shit, it's like peak fiat. So like you have like the peak remnant and the peak fiat kids generation at the same time, and you can't help but feel like, oh my god, like I got to take this opportunity to generate these superhumans. They're essentially going to be superhumans, right? With the advantages of Bitcoin compared to all the shit that's going on. So that's cool. That's a interesting cultural underpinning of the whole Bitcoin maxi culture. They say it's toxic, but like all the Bitcoin toxic people are super family oriented and family friendly. Like it's the biggest myth of all time, It's just, we're just allergic to your bullshit. You're not toxic. Like,
so your dating pool must be a little bit smaller than usual. Most women, that's not the best first date conversation.
Oh
but
boy.
Yeah, look, this is my future. I hope you're a part of it.
There is definitely an undercurrent of women that are saying, where are all the good men? That's something that you hear like these days. Where are all the good men? Everybody fucking sucks. And then, so Bitcoiners, and I was thinking about something really funny today, like hot-based Texas woman meet international Bitcoin future tycoon that's fantasizing about the meme, the meme women that's obviously from Texas, the meme-based women. And then she's like, everybody sucks in Texas, like everybody's a pussy. And he's like, oh, like I've been a pussy my life, and then now I've become base with Bitcoin, and like that's gonna be this kind of super smart and super babe women just merging. I have this joke that I keep telling. It may be too late to become an early adopter, but it's never too late to get into a relationship with a Bitcoin early adopter. And then
nice.
And then you weren't that lucky to fall into Bitcoin 8 years ago, but you may have some qualities, and if you get married with an early Bitcoin adopter, presumably you are now set for life. So it's going to be interesting to see the dating pool of unvaccinated Bitcoin early adopters. Or the dating pool is difficult. It is very, very difficult. But the thing is, the way that I see it is, you place yourself, if you fully go out with your values, if you don't LARP, essentially, if you don't LARP, you will find the love of your life or your girlfriend. If you LARP, you won't. But if you don't LARP and you actually go out there and do shit with your life, and it's not just happening in your head and behind the screen, and you're actually going out there and meeting and organizing stuff and taking agency, I guess is the word is like you're taking agency over, you're acting. Then you will put yourself in positions where naturally people gravitate. Right? So there's a strong gravitational pull. I mean, I meet. I have a girlfriend and I'm very happy. But I mean, because I'm putting myself.
But you
I
could
guess
be happier.
I'm putting myself in an aura of based people. Like I guess I'm hanging out in the right circles to witness that there is a demand for girls that are. I want a based like cool boyfriend that's not a fucking pussy. Like there is definitely.
Oh yeah.
And then that the whole value like, and then I saw that in my dating earlier years ago, a few years ago, like in the 30s, a lot of the women that I was in my circles, like Bitcoiners, were telling me about how they got brainwashed, and with a very I know a lot of women that are like now that are realizing how brainwashed they were about what's a happy life, what's a happy relationship, like the gender roles and money and who's supposed to do what, and then now they're like, "Eesh, like what have I done? Like this is a fucking scam." And you know what? It takes a certain set of skills to go through hyper-Bitcoinization. Like it's a hard thing to go through hyper-Bitcoinization and go through the Great Reset. Oh. It requires a lot of manly qualities. I'm sorry, like it's definitely like. It's not. We're struggling figuring out what to do with the Great Reset, like alpha guys, like because it's overwhelming, all that shit. So the hot-based babes with the geeky Bitcoiners creating superhumans. I'm not trying to do eugenics, but I mean, no. But I'm thinking about it. I'm serious. I'm like, I got a lot of good Bitcoiner friends that their kids are like 1 to 2 years old. I'm like, okay, if I hurry up, like maybe. If we become friends, the kids will. Okay, yes, let's create some fucking dynasties over here. What are we supposed to do after we create our citadels? Then we have to create dynasties of Bitcoiners. Because think about it, you're gonna want your descendants to have the same values because they're gonna be transferring the keys, so they can't fucking squander the keys. They supporting that the keys go. You have to aim for 8 generations of your keys being passed down. Like most people are only thinking of 1. You have to think about 8 generations. Can't wait for the very fancy smart contract shit, like where you have to do crazy shit and the Bitcoins are locked for generations. That's going to be fun.
We need to find out how to operate with that. Logistics.
That's going to be a tough one.
You're working on it, right?
I mean, not specifically. I've obviously thought about this for a long time. Like, but the thing is, I've never had an incentive to do that. I've only really thought about the Easter egg hunt I'm going to do when I die for the Bitcoins that I hide and the treasure and the whole treasure setup. So that I've put a lot of thought into because I don't have any kids, obviously. And my parents are, they're well off. They have so I haven't really put a lot of thought into my long-term setup, but I definitely will. And the thing is, most of the things that I want to do require a lot of technology. So I'm waiting for the DLCs and Taproot and all that kind of stuff is definitely super interesting.
I would push back a bit and say what you should do is make people not have to rely on technology and have them reverse course and learn things.
Right. Yes. No, that's a good one.
Yeah.
So
use old-fashioned deductive reasoning. Okay.
That's a very good one.
This is what Pubby does, man. I don't research shit. I just started a goddamn program with Anders, and this is where we land.
You're right. The one that I'm gonna do, yes, something. Okay, I'm gonna think about it, and then when I die, you will all know. If
I'm on the list. I'm on the list.
But I'll give you some credits. But I'll put you in the credits.
Nice.
Like.
Okay.
Right. No, but seriously, it's definitely gonna start to be on everyone's mind, I guess, right? Because the thing is, when your inheritance is like $50,000, even though you're a whole huge Bitcoin bull. I mean, imagine in like 20 years, when you're supposed to pass down 20 Bitcoins from one generation to another, like how much is going to be one Bitcoin? Like 200. And it's not like the fiat setups now. Everybody's going to want to be stealing those Bitcoins. There's going to be high risk Bitcoins for your descendants as well. Like it's going to be, you can't trust nobody, man. Nobody. Is there going to be any institution like a notary or a legal contract that's going to last that long? Impossible. And then, yeah, you have to develop like a cult around the passing of the inheritance for your own family.
I'll look for inspiration. I'm looking forward to dig more into that and hear what you find out. Hope to see you in the citadels, Francis, for sure, together with Puppy and the rest of the good people.
Yeah, well, there's going to be some in the mountains, some on the ocean, some in Texas, some all over the world. Remnant, Bitcoin Remnant Airlines is going to be a thing. The shared Bitcoin. Yeah,
Pubby
the shared
Pubby
emergency.
Jet.
Yeah,
Pubby
yeah, the chat. The Pubby chat.
Jet is going to happen.
Yo, sometimes Pubby's going to be like, yo, let's just go for a beer and we're just going to take the
jet.
the Bitcoiner jet and just go to your remote pub in some Scottish island or something, like some remote Irish island. They have an old school pub for us.
80-year-old whiskey there. That sounds about right.
I mean, how much is Bitcoin going to be worth? I mean, in 30 years, so
let's talk about
a lot. Like,
let's talk about that. And so where Bob's going, I want to go as well, but I'm going to wait now for him to be back. But well, I mean, one Bitcoin, I used to do the calculation that would put it at $20 million, but that was pre-COVID printing, pre-COVID quantitative easing and steroids. But it's very, very logical and feasible that Bitcoin takes over. I mean, not only what currency is valued at today, but also real estate and stocks. 75% of that easily, you could argue, is really store value. Real estate is only that high because the interest rate is artificially low. So $20 million for Bitcoin used to be my target, but in today's currency, it'd probably be more like 30, 40. And then what likely will happen once we have good money that doesn't allow for misallocation of capital, we think, where money is going into just building new real estate just because the interest rate is low, you can then sell it. It will be used productively. So let's say one Bitcoin hits 30 million in today's purchasing power value, but also the economy again will become productive like now.
You're totally correct, and that's the infinity meme, right? It's the infinity divided by 20 million meme that you're describing, which I only recently. It's such a simple thought, but I didn't actually, because my target was like naively just like the total amount of monetary, but the thing is, I think we're underestimating just how much we've been crippled by fiat. And if you think about it, it's gotta be like 50x. It's gotta be like 100x more than what we have now. So if all things being equal, Bitcoin is like 20 million purchasing power if it takes over and nothing changes in terms of the economy. But then if we 50x or 100x the economy, the amount of wealth that's produced over like 25 years, because I think that's kind of like the target we're looking at. I mean, how much of that 20 million top that we currently can conceive of if Bitcoin takes over is now, I don't know, 100 million, like 200 million, like a billion, like $1 billion Bitcoin. Is that so inconceivable in a 50-year time frame? I don't know.
I am back. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I was just I don't know if you missed this, but I was just being like insanely bullish about if we have 100x. Yeah, we're gonna like $1 billion Bitcoin. Should we raise the price target to that? I think so. 50 years.
Actually, Jay Donald wasn't because he said going to go through can't store value, and I think, unfortunately.
Right, and then the purchasing power will also compound continuously up. Right, so it's not a static thing. So yeah, infinity divided by 21 million. So God, and then yeah, the opportunity cost of Bitcoin is so insanely high. But then the thing is, like, I hope everybody's made peace. I had this tweet like I think a year and a half ago, or even maybe earlier. I was like, I hope you guys have made peace with the amount of Bitcoin that you have, because
it's tough. I want more, man. It's
tough. Yeah, it's like it's tough. It's tough. I mean, now we're in the ranges where, you can average people can totally conceivably get dozens of Bitcoin by making millions of dollars. Like, you can make millions of dollars worth in the fiat Ponzi economy and accumulate some Bitcoins. But a lot of people, it's like, for a lot of the working class, for example, that are not capitalism minded or entrepreneurial, because I mean, the thing is actually, Anders, like, now to make Bitcoin, you need to be an entrepreneur to have a whole Bitcoin. You need to be, you're gonna start to. It's kind of like, how do you? Back in the day, my dad, when I was very young, told me something like, if you want to be a millionaire, you don't become a lawyer or a doctor. You make bolts. You sell bolts. Sell anything, make any company. That's how you become a millionaire. Make any product. Just, you're not gonna do that through salary. It's just not. Well, now today, yes, because fiat economy and all that shit. But that's gonna raise the bar really, and then people are really gonna deserve their Bitcoins when in the future, it's progressively gonna become difficult. But then obviously, I think the purchasing power is just so, even if we're like, because right now it was so easy to accumulate Bitcoins like 5 years ago. People that were in Bitcoin 5 years ago, now a lot of people I see are like, it's not even worth it. It's not even worth it for that reason that I said, because it used to take me 10 hours. Now it's taking me 10,000 hours. Like, why would I do that? But however, you have to also keep thinking like, that's going to be 1 million hours in the future. That's even more crazy, right? So you're going to be saying the same thing about, oh my God, like, I could have done this in 10,000 hours, and now it's going to take me 1 billion hours. Like until the end of time, I will not even. It will take literally 10 generations of descendants to get to that amount that I would have done by stacking at 50K. So I keep so bullish, that's for sure.
Yeah, we got to keep stacking, and you can never have enough, I guess.
Yo, sat penny parity. That's it, man. That's $100 million Bitcoin. Like,
we'll get there. I mean, fiat is going to collapse, in my opinion. I think we agree to that.
When do you think? So what's your Hyperbitcoinization timeline? Short, medium, long? Like, where are you at now?
I think that after the next halving, the value of Bitcoin will be so high, it will be at like 30-40% of global monetary value, and I think that is enough to trigger public, mass consciousness about the fact that Bitcoin is here to take over, and right. that will create that final bank run where people will do everything they can to get rid of their dirty fiat currency and buy as much Bitcoin as they can. And I think at that time it will accelerate, but of course it's all probabilities. But I feel for sure before 2030. Let's see. I mean, but I think between 24 and 28 halvings, I could see it. What about you? What do you think?
I think that sounds pretty correct to me. I mean, the thing is, there's two components. There's like Bitcoin readiness, Bitcoin adoption readiness. That's kind of more of a fixed metric in the sense that there is just a limited capacity to onboard people to the network, and there's all sorts of issues with Bitcoin still, and so that's kind of a fixed thing that I think I'm hopeful that the Hyperbitcoinization event is more around like 2026, because I think like 2-3
that's what I've been saying. 2026 has been my year.
Yeah, like maybe what we're gonna have is a top. I think we're gonna have a big top like soon. Just I'm not like, I don't want to give trading advice, but I think I do kind of. There's gonna be a top in like a year and a half or something, right? I mean, we kind of all see it coming. Like, we're gonna blow up. Bitcoin's gonna blow up. It's gonna pop in.
So,
I'm
yeah,
kind of thinking
we're in a bull run.
like,
Look, we're in a bull run.
We're gonna be in a bull run soon. Like we've been in a weird spot, but we're in a midterm bull run, and like the ejaculation moment of the bull run that started like a year and a half ago. Like that's soon. That's happening soon, and then I don't think that's a nice cycle. I don't think it's a nice cycle now, for many reasons, including like the onboarding and stuff like that. Bitcoin's hard to use and all that shit. And then there's also the controlled demolition of right, and the controlled demolition of fiat is like they can still squeeze harder after one Bitcoin top. I think like the fiat machine can still squeeze harder. After that, at like the 2026, so maybe like we have a local top in 2022, like a big pump in 2022, it goes to, I don't know, like 250K, 300K, something like that. That's how I have it in my mind. I hope it's going to pan out. Then, back down to 50 or something, or back down to 70. And then 2026, it's just the whole system is so fucked. Like the halving kicks in and even though I don't think the halving has that big of an effect, I think the marketing, the whole thing, like a few nation states are going to be like, all right, let's front run the halving. It's going to totally pop. And then, as I said, I think we have a historical local top after the first Hyperbitcoinization event, where fiat no longer can be measured, and Bitcoins can no longer be dumped for almost anything. So Bitcoin becomes almost impossible to price through anything other than commerce.
Yes.
And then you have that Bitcoin standard kicks in, and then so like imagine a S-curve and then another kind of a slower, longer term tail. And that's usually, I guess, it's kind of usually the technology curve, where you have like, and then the technology curve is not going to be because people refuse to adopt Bitcoin, they're laggards. It's just because they have no wealth to get into Bitcoin. So I think like the first wave of hyper-Bitcoinization is like everybody's using Bitcoin, just nobody has enough money to buy Bitcoin. Like people don't have the money to buy Bitcoin anymore. So that's I think the way it's going to pan out. Because if everybody's accepting Bitcoin at the store and fiat has gone, like there's no laggards, there's no technology laggards.
Exactly.
Right.
Everyone will be forced to adopt Bitcoin eventually, because that's the only money that they will be paid for when they work. It's the only money they will accept when they work, because fiat doesn't have value anymore. It's the only money that the supermarket will accept, etc. It's just there won't be a choice in the end. But if you take a step now and start either allocating to Bitcoin or going all in, like you, Francis, and I, then you'll be in a better spot, in my personal opinion. But it's so funny that what you described there, it's what I've been believing for years. And like several years ago, my Twitter handle was bank run incoming 2026, exactly the year you're talking about here.
Right.
Because that's that peak after the next halving, and that will be so high that there is just no point of no. It's point of no return is what I want to say. But so, anyways. Man, Francis, it's so you've actually been frozen on my screen for a while.
Really?
I don't know if I don't. Yeah, but I think they haven't been saying anything in the chat. I think they probably have a proper video feed of you.
I'm still live.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And
Pubby's gone.
MG Smith 4 here says Puppy gone fishing for cheap sats or buying drones or whatever. Absolutely, Puppy yet again rock pulled like he usually does, but it's part of the toxic happy hour. So but Francis, man, it's just truly a pleasure to hang out with you. Really, really happy we got a chance to get you on here. Thank you very much.
I had a blast. Thank you so much, guys. I think it's about time for me to go surfing right now. So. I got a good dose of Bitcoin meetings today, Bitcoin podcasting, and I've been like, you know what? I was even almost thinking this is a meme that you guys always invite me, and then I never show up, and I always do want to show up. But the thing is, every Monday is my work day. Monday is like team meeting. Francis is on the phone all day with the staff, with the whatever business shit, and then so the Monday is always the worst time for me. But today is good because I was just looking forward to it too much. So yeah, Pubby, like you were gone buying some drones and setting up a hit on me or something, and then so I'm unraveling the first act of my exit right now.
So when you buy a drone today, they only ask you 2 questions. Is this for a hit? Is this for a hit, or are you trying to deliver beef to somebody that's a carnivore?
To look the what? The beach?
The beef. Do you want
Deliver
the beef?
Oh, the beef. Oh, to deliver beef. Yes.
Deliver beef, or you
Right.
you have a political hit you want to do.
I want to have a swarm of defensive drones that are surrounding me at all times, just fucking zapping enemy drones and delivering me beef. Both.
Fuck.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, Puppy. So, we kind of got the hint from you that the show was over. You were kind of telling us for half an hour about being here. but I think Francis gotta go hit the wave. He's living a tough life as a Bitcoiner. He's been working for up to 2 hours on his laptop here before the waves are calling.
Absolutely.
I love all the classic Bitcoin podcasts. You see them 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 1 hour.
Mm-hmm.
We just go. So we.
How long did we go? We just did 2 hours and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
We appreciate
and I only had one beer, so it's a good thing because I'm going surfing. But
next, surf. That's what we do, man. That's what we do. Make sure surf safely, man. That's what.
All right, sounds good, bros. It was really fun. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah,
I'll see you guys soon, I'm sure.
Sure. Yeah. Hope to see you in Miami. But Francis, anything you want to plug? Anything you want to say before you hit to the waves? And by the way, thank you so much, of course, for coming.
Oh yeah. So I guess you can follow me. Just follow me on Twitter, Francis Pouliot _, and also follow my new backup account at Francis Remnant because I'm on my 3rd Twitter strike. The last one was 7 days, and then the next one is the permanent boot. I know it. I can feel it coming. I think 2021 is going to be the year of my Twitter account death. So follow at Francis Remnant, one word. All right. Okay. See you later, guys.
Yeah. See you later, man.
Sorry,
Thanks a lot. And your Twitter link is down below for the people on YouTube show notes. Send me your new account as well. I'll put it down there as well.
Perfect.
Okay. Cool, man. Thanks a lot, Francis.
All right.
Thank you.
Peace out. All right. Take care, guys.
Got it.
All right. Puppy, my turn to go reset the node, I think. But it's getting late here. I'm in Denmark.
Dude, I know. I was.
You had your break. You had your nap.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, man. Yeah, are we still live here? I didn't even know. This is crazy, man.
This is the time I should say no, but actually we are.
Yeah, this is beautiful. France is one of those guys, man. He is the entire epitome and ethos of what Bitcoin means, man. The guy just fucking loves life. He loves freedom. He's avoiding the jab. He's avoiding all this. I love him, man. It's good shit.
Absolutely. Francis is such a good guy, and he just has really good values. He's a good guy, and definitely a great and inspiring Bitcoiner. He's paving the road, man. What can we say?
Yeah,
but
not much we can add to the game, can we?
Nope. All right, Puppy, I gotta go, man. My node is calling for a reset. So
all right, man.
Listen, but once again, if anyone want to buy a ticket for Miami 2022, which is going to be in April 6 till 9, I don't have the link down below yet, but if you go to the website, the code Toxic22 will give you 10% discount. And William Myers, I see you in the chat there, and thanks to everyone participating there. I believe you bought your ticket, right, buddy? And he lives in Miami, so that's our get out of jail free card, Puppy, right there. #Lime.
Always good to have the police on your side.
It is. All right, man. So another thing worth mentioning. So it seems that apart from next Monday, probably Pubby and I will be able to do Toxic Happy Hour almost every Monday. So hopefully this will start to get back to taking this a little bit serious, although we never really did. But start getting some momentum back in this show. So I remember what the different things in the different buttons in Restream does. But God, I love our countdown video, man. By the way, that was made by Plan Marcus. There's a link to him down below as well in the show notes. I love that video. Awesome. What about BTC Moon Guy? Are you going to show up at a conference or are you going to stay incognito? Anyways, Puppy, man, take the chair.
Can BTC Moon Guy actually come in the show one time, or is he going to hide out? I don't know. That's up to him, man.
Well, at least he could do a GG and wear a green suit and be invisible or something, right? If you go back and watch the first 3 shows we did, I think approximately from a year ago, he was the only guy in the chat.
He is literally Satoshi Nakamoto. He's the only guy that could be there from the beginning that can afford to not do anything.
Right. And no one ever saw Satoshi Nakamoto or BTC Moon Guy in the same room.
Never.
Now go figure. Done. That's it. Done. I did think it was Jessica's mom, though, that wrote the white paper. It kind of got that feeling in Miami.
Yeah. Hey, you're treading on dangerous waters here, man.
I am. So let's move on and talk about how likely is it that you're going to make it?
99%. 99% right now.
Let's go, man. Can't wait.
So I shared the jersey, the beautiful jersey. The Brondby.
You want to see it? You want to see it live?
Yeah.
Okay. But you got to give me a chance to just reset the node. Can you hang in there for 2 minutes?
No.
Hey, look,
gotta go.
You got to go? No, you got to go?
Go ahead.
You mother. All right. Give me 2 minutes and I'll show you the jersey.
Reading. I like this. Yeah. Not reading, man. I love to read the classics. And I don't know who the son of a bitch was that someone sent me a goddamn Jack Reacher novel. And now I'm fucking hooked on those motherfuckers. And I'll tell you why. It's because I love the way. Hang on. Here comes Anders.
You still here? Amazing. Yep. That was a serious reset. All right. Okay. So I've been a fan of Brondby for a very long time. You asked me for a jersey, and then of course we're gonna start throwing on some Twitter handle names on the jersey. So
unveiled lot. Holy fucking shit. That is goddamn glorious.
Yep. And this is
shit.
Dude, it's a beaut.
What is it? Booze? Was that Booze Jet? Oh,
this is
1984.
Boostlet. That's the sponsor. So no, yeah, 1964.
No, I thought it says Boost Jet on the front. And I'm thinking, yeah,
no, Boostlet. So
dude.
And I've gone with the Danish 69 because it's
such a
the
joke.
conference. The conference is from April 6 till 9. That's why I went with the Danish 69. And by the way, so we have this, paid extra to have this one on the sleeve. It's because we got champions, became champions last year. So that's what we're doing. You'll be wearing that at the at the conference. So wait, what is MG Smith saying here? I hope Brøndby rip Glasgow Rangers. Yes, we will do our very best. This is the only reason I'm planning to come back to Denmark in November, because I bought all the tickets for the home games in the Europe League group stage. So we have 3 home games in total. I saw Sparta Prague a few weeks ago. We got a draw, so at least we got a point on the board. And we're playing Glasgow Rangers and Lyon from France in November home. So yeah, I hope we beat them both, but it's going to be an uphill battle. But it's fun.
If you're still listening, if you are, I don't know why. Let me tell you something.
Me neither.
Show up to Miami, and we're gonna have a blast, a fucking blast. Just show up down there, and then everyone can put their orders in for Brøndby jerseys for next year. Anders will buy, of course. Okay, we'll take a collection up and buy. No, man.
I'll happily provide. I'll happily provide the link. So but of course, people may not want to support Brøndby, but Brøndby means a lot to me. That's why we're wearing Brøndby jerseys. And Marty's Al is looking at one. Also, so we're gonna be a couple.
If it means a lot to you, it means a lot to us, my friend. You should know that.
Thank you. I really, if I can make Brøndby associated with a Bitcoin or a thing in the Bitcoin community, and that way push Brøndby towards Bitcoin as well, because they go, what's going on here? That would be awesome. That would be awesome. All right, man.
The last time I talked to Messi, he told me, if you can find me a football club that enjoys Bitcoin, I'm there. So let me reach out to Messi. We'll see. He may be a man of his word. We'll see. Anyway, I got to take off, brother. Yeah, that's a good 2-hour. Listen, Francis, fucking brilliant, dude. That guy will go for hours. He's a true Bitcoiner. Bitcoiner.
He's a pioneer, man. And he built in Bitcoin, and he built a company that is serving the community and selling Bitcoin in Canada, and I believe in helping people pay their bills in Bitcoin. So anyway, well, you got to take off. Family's calling. So do you have any final words, Puppy, before I do some kind of outro?
No, I do. Listen, what we're looking at here, the biggest thing in my mind, besides, everyone has their idea of Bitcoin in general. Okay, everyone has their idea of Bitcoin and price action. What is new here is Evergrande. Evergrande is going to fuck up some systems, but it just reminds me of buy Bitcoin. Stay away from those companies that just buy and leverage and everything else. Buy Bitcoin, hold it to the side, and don't sell for 10 years. That's all.
Francis had a very good point. He said you should take a big portion of your Bitcoin and just in your create a mental vault and say, I will never touch that Bitcoin no matter what. That is for your descendants. I love it. All right. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm trying to keep my voice down here, not to wake anyone up. And I always speak loud anyway, so that's probably a good idea. it was fun, man. Great to do this again, Puppy. And I'm happy that we're finding out that we can probably go, except next month, on almost every single Monday, and then add up another show maybe during the week and get our mojo going before Miami 2022, man. I can't wait.
We'll do, man.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So on that, as a final note, I think I just want to say that be careful storing more value in dirty fiat than you can afford to lose, because it's a built-in policy that they steal the value of your fiat currency, aka dollars, euro, etc., because they print more and they have convinced you that that's good for you, but it's not, because you'll lose the savings you're supposed to retire from. So be careful storing value in that, because it's built in that it's not going to work. So on that note, Puppy, good to see you again. Great to have Francis on. Love that guy. Hope to see him in Miami, and hope to see a lot of people from the chat in Miami.
Love you, brother.
Love you too, man. All right. Bye.